racing. You wanted the best, you got them for abreast. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt, the World of Outlaws.
Welcome one and all to V8s Online for this final segment of the Majors Le Mans 24-hour. Fantastic race so far over the last 21 hours. Here at V8s Online, we are covering the final 3 hours as the race comes to a close, and there's some juicy battles starting to form. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, Corey Ott and Cameron Dance. Corey, it's been quite the interesting race so far, but we haven't had many retirements.
Yeah, exactly. Only 30 cars taking the grid for this 24 hours of Le Mans in for the major series, and only so far 5 overall of DNF. So not a lot at all, as you said.
Yes, indeed, and we've got some pretty close battles starting to form for the lead in 2 classes at the very least. The battle for the overall lead, the LMP1 lead, is starting to climb down. Workiva Kinetic Racing, number 83, which started the race on pole, has been in hot pursuit of the Grizzly Motorsports, number 48, Audi. And that gap is steadily dropping. It's last time by at the line, it was down to 1 minute and 17. So they've made up, actually, I think about 15, 16 seconds since I started observing them before the broadcast.
Yeah, so the gap is closing down, and I think Reese would give it about 10 minutes or so until we see well, not even 10 minutes, maybe 20, half an hour before we see a battle for the lead start to brew.
Yeah, I'd say so. And at the rate the Kinetic Racing car is catching up, we should see them come together, if not at the end of the race, then slightly before. So it'll be one hell of a finish in the top class here. Meanwhile, Cam, in the LMP2 class, we've got Talk Freak Racing Arnage leading, but Team Mad with David Baker at the wheel is currently lapping incredibly quickly, about 3 seconds a lap faster, and those cars are on the same lap. They're not too far apart, so it should be interesting to see where they turn out. I mean, looks like Talk Freak Racing is close to lapping Team Mad, but they're steadily pulling away.
Yeah, absolutely. That gap is actually building every single lap by, as you said, 3 seconds. So the Team Mad car is pulling away, but also trying their best to try and close that gap back up to being so they're actually on the lead lap at the same time, more or less, rather than having the Talk Freak car on one lap and then them still finishing the other lap.
Yes, well, one pit stop could change all of that, or one incident. We'll see what happens coming up to the end of the race, but in GTE, meanwhile, guys, Talk Freak Racing absolutely dominating in the number 81 Radeon Porsche. Got the lead by a full 3 laps, I think, over the Road Bastards 991 car with Jan Philipp Wied at the wheel of that one. So it doesn't look like GTE has much competition at this stage, but if anything, you can say that the Talk Freak have definitely stamped their authority upon that field.
Yeah, exactly. Talk Freak taking out the 2 minority classes. They don't have a car in P1, but they're sure showing their dominance in the P2 and the GTE categories.
Yes, indeed. And tell you what, one car that I was observing before we went live was the Avatar Auto Racing number 61 Ferrari. I noticed Dwayne Burns accidentally spun that machine at Tete Rouge at one point. That car does have quite a bit of damage on it, but they're still managing a very strong 3rd place. So that will be good for them, but that lead battle in LMP1, guys, is still closing down bit by bit. The gap last time by was down to 1 minute and 13 seconds. Meanwhile, we actually have a proper on-track battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th in LMP1. Looking at 4th and 5th right now, Grizzly Evolution versus V Apex Racing Atlantic. That gap's now down to 5 seconds between those cars, so we're going to see a proper on-track battle in LMP1 now very, very soon. Just having a look at the lap times between these guys, it was a 3:26.38 for the Grizzly car, 3:25.0 that Chuck Chambliss set in the V Apex number 6 Porsche. So Chambliss in hot pursuit of Kaig, and looking like they're closing up. The Turn 1 Heroes number 3 car isn't far behind either. Stefan Schlacker just coming onto the Mulsanne straight now. So this has yet to be decided properly.
Yeah, and Grizzly Evolution, they started 11th on the grid, but we're only got 2 hours 55 to go, so they've really climbed up to where they are now. So now they've got to show themselves well, as they've got, basically this could be a good showing of what Porsche versus Audi in the P1 categories like.
Yes, indeed. That's one thing that we haven't touched on quite yet is differences between the Porsche and the Audi. The Audi has a smaller fuel tank, but both cars refill at the same rate. So the Audi actually has the advantage on fuel stops, but that's sort of balanced out by the fact that the Porsche can regenerate its hybrid system on straights thanks to generator hooked up to the turbo. The Audi can only do it under brakes, and the Audi suffers a little bit in the straight line speed category as well. So Porsche is, I suppose, better suited for a track like Le Mans, but the Audi, if you play the pit stop game right, it can certainly bring forth its own advantages. But currently, in terms of outright pace, the Porsches seem to have the advantage over the Audis.
Exactly, and also just spotted going down to Indianapolis. I don't know if the broadcast would have seen it, but he was on the push to pass. He just climbed up the speed, and you could hear the car max out in 7th. So he is attacking right now. He really wants that spot.
Yeah, definitely Chuck Chambliss powering through the Porsche curves. Should also probably mention the Audi is a little bit better in the handling department. If you want to go through those medium to quick speed turns, then the Audi is definitely the car to have. That's the good thing about LMP1 here, is that both cars have their own strengths and weaknesses, and it seems to me like the balance of performance has been pretty good between these cars. The Porsche is the more popular machine, but the teams that have chosen the Audi are certainly making it work for them, like Grizzly up the front.
Yep, Grizzly just outbroke himself, I think, into the first chicane. They might have a slowdown. I think they do, but they'll continue on.
Going to get a replay of that one. Grizzly Evolution car. Bit of an issue coming into the chicane. Of course, he probably would have gotten a slowdown for that, but I think it's been cleared already, so no trouble there for him. It has brought the V-Apex racing car a little bit closer, though, almost in line of sight. So, battle for 4th in LMP1 at the moment, looking like a bit of a slow burner at the moment. Meanwhile, the battle for the overall LMP1 lead down to just over 70 seconds. Tell you what, Christian Challoner is absolutely smashing that Porsche. He set a 3:17.98 on the last lap, so he's still pushing super hard. In fact, set that car's fastest lap on lap 3:56. About 13 laps ago or so. So that car's definitely on a charge right now, the number 83 up front.
Well, if you want to know how fast he was, that fastest lap for that car would put them, would have put them P2 in qualifying. So, and they were the pole car, so they're catching back up to what they had at the start of the race at the moment.
Yeah, they definitely are. That's looking quite impressive from the Workiva Kinetic Racing boys. Chuck Chambliss bouncing off the limiter of the number 6 coming up to Indianapolis. He's using all of the hybrid energy that he possibly can. And that gap between them is getting smaller and smaller by the second. Actually now within line of sight. Currently on board now with Chuck Chambliss as he comes through the Porsche curves. That wall, pretty scary as you come up to it. And this final turn, the left-hander, a little bit slower than it looks, so you really got to be careful how you take it, otherwise you'll run wide. Got to slow down on exit.
Bumps in traffic in front of me now is the Grizzly Evolution car's working through, but I think he would have lost time, or sorry, the V-Apex car's gaining time on him now, so.
Oh yeah, have a look at this.
I think he's using his...
It's a slowdown. What? What's going on there?
I think it was, he was clearing a slowdown. He might have got a slowdown.
Let me just rewind, have a bit of a look. We're gonna get a replay just to see what happened there. Doesn't look to me like he might have got a slowdown earlier coming out of the Porsche curves.
Might have been that left off camber, but you just got over the white line, but I don't know if that would count as a slowdown.
It does, because he wasn't back on track when the curve ended.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
So.
So that is certainly not how anyone would have wanted to see that battle decided. I'm sure everyone would have liked a bit of a fight to ensue, a little bit of fun in the last couple hours, but that's that position decided for now. So VAPEX Racing Atlantic moves up into 4th place, continuing to drive the wheels off that Porsche.
Now that gap is now down to 66 seconds at the last time by the stripe.
Yeah, of course, talking about the lead battle in LMP1, Christian Challoner pursuing the Grizzly Motorsports number 48. Tell you what, watching him drive, he's got that car worked out, he's got the track worked out as well. Kinetic have really pulled out all the stops here. They've been quite successful in the Majors series over the seasons so far. John King, I believe, still leading the international standings. So that team, one of the strongest, at least in the division that we usually cover here at V8 Online, the International. And here, where all divisions are brought together for the 24-hour.
And I do believe this is the last event of the year for Majors where all the regions are together and now they're pitting.
Yes, indeed. So Christian Challoner brings the Porsche in 60 kilometers an hour. The pit speed here at LeMans, so end of a fuel tank, possibly a change of tires, we'll see. That was a 12-lap stint there for Christian Challoner, so we can expect that general length. And that is their 33rd pit stop that they're taking at the moment in the number 83 car. Just goes to show how long this race is, you know, 24 hours. It seems like a long time already when you talk about it, but when you take into account just how many laps these guys cover, they've just started their 371st lap. So that is certainly quite some numbers. Challoner out of the pits now and just negotiating some GTE traffic. That's Cody Wyman in the Elite West racing car. They're running in 4th in GTE right now. And speaking of GTE, seems like the Porsche 911 RSR has been the car of choice among teams for this event. There was one Ford GT in the field, but they were removed from the race due to some interesting on-track action. And there's only 2 Ferraris running at the moment in this field, so the majority are Porsche 911s.
Might I dare say, new car, might as well test it out for 24 hours?
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable thing to do. And this provides a great opportunity for teams to see how the car handles long stints. Meanwhile, Grizzly Motorsports is going to jump into the pits from position 1, Dawson Brock. Bringing that one in. Almost losing it, braking for the pit speed limit. So we'll see how long they are stopped. We can expect a quicker pit stop for the Audis, for the reasons I outlined before. But that number 83 car still pounding away, and some fantastic pace at the hands of Challoner. So after this pit stop, we'll be able to see who has the advantage, and I would expect the number 83 car to continue in their pursuit, the gap being even smaller this time around. So there's a driver change actually in the Grizzly Motorsports car. Joshua Wolf now taking over from Dawson Brock. So let's have a look at their past stints. Joshua Wolf has set some pretty good lap times.
He did set the fastest lap for the car back on lap 212.
So this could be a strategic ploy from Grizzly Motorsports. Put their fastest driver in the car to try and cover Challoner. So, we've just been informed that there's 5th and 6th in LMP1, or 4th and 5th, sorry. Apex Racing Atlantic versus Turn 1 Heroes, dropping 7 seconds on the last lap. I'm not quite sure what the deal was there, but Chuck Chambliss seems to have not had a very good last lap or so.
I think it might have been because he had hybrid coming out of the last corner there.
I'm just going to rewind and see what might have happened. Yeah, that lap was slow too. A 3:25. Just going back through that lap, it doesn't look like he had any... doesn't look like there were any large incidents, so I think he might have just overused the electric power of the car and might just be taking a few laps to recover some energy. Because in these LMP1 cars, you do have to be very careful about how you use the electric power in these things. Especially around a track like Le Mans, where straight line speed is such an important segment of how you achieve your success. Getting up to that straight line speed requires a good deployment of the electric energy, and if you use too much at once, then you'll be left for the next couple of straights with no energy at your disposal, which can really hurt your lap time. So I think that's what's happened to the V-Apex car. And the Turn 1 Heroes car has already gained 3 seconds so far this lap, gap down to under 14 seconds now. So just taking a look here as the V-Apex racing car comes down the straight. Topping out, coming into Mulsanne at about 317 kilometers an hour. See what the Turn 1 Heroes car can achieve. Looks to be about the same, but... well, actually a little bit slower, but I think the V-Apex car... topping out at 324 and bouncing off the limiter in top gear. So that's interesting. Lead battle, meanwhile, continuing to come down lap after lap. It's down to under 44 seconds. Well, guys, this battle for 4th and 5th in LMP1 really starting to hot up now. I think we might see a move very soon.
Look at their lap time from this lap, seeing as though it looks at V-Apex is back up to speed.
Yeah, well, V-Apex just got a little bit faster on that last lap, 322 now. Still losing time to the car behind them, but looks to me like Chuck has gotten back some of the pace that he had before.
But that doesn't matter because Stefan Schwecker has 3:18.9, so he's on the attack mode now. He really wants that 4th position.
Well, they don't have much long to go. I mean, I say that there's still over 2.5 hours left in this race. But in the grand scheme of things, once you've done 21.5 hours of racing, another 2 and a bit doesn't seem like very much, does it?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't seem like a lot, and in that space, you could lose it. You could lose your whole race just by one single mistake. So this is not the start. This is towards the end. So you gotta keep your consistency on and don't screw it up.
Well, comparing top speed once again, that V Apex car does seem to have top gear that is a bit lower. Oh goodness me, what happened there? Looks to me like the V Apex car just let by a lapping car, the Bombshell Motorsports machine, which is running 3rd. Had to deal, I think, with a bit of a slowdown on that straight. So yet more time lost for them, which is no good.
And they're both Porsches, so there's no difference between Porsche and Audi. So it's all about raw pace at the moment.
Yes, indeed. Turn 1 heroes just exiting Mulsanne corner now, passing some traffic. That, I believe, was Joseph Cardamone in the Kinetic Racing LMP2. So now it's under 10 seconds in this battle. Stefan Schlager really turning it on here. That car's fastest lap was set by Riley Thompson, a 3:17.6. So Stefan's doing a sterling job here. He's not only lapping fast, he's lapping consistent as well. So the Turn 1 Heroes car is set for a really good position at the end of all of this, and a little bit awkward passing the Road Bastards car in the middle of the Porsche curves, but thankfully the superior downforce of the LMP1 means you can just go around the outside and get back online for the next turn, and the Turn 1 Heroes car into the pits. So, God, that must... I know in the past when, you know, my team has been in pursuit of another car and we've had to pit, it's a little demoralizing.
Well, now you're only hoping, if you're the Turn 1 Heroes car, that V Apex pit in the next couple of laps so you can continue on the battle.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And Chuck is still lapping outside the 3-minute 20s, so I get the feeling it's only a matter of time before those guys end up embroiled in a fight. Team Mad still gaining 2 seconds a lap on Torque Freak Arnage. Meanwhile, talking about the lead battle in LMP2, so it's 2-minute 55 gap at the moment. So how many seconds is that? That's 155 seconds. There's only 44 laps to go in this race with the current pace of these cars. I don't think they can do it. Unless there's some kind of incident where they end up getting home on a pit stop and get a bit of an advantage over the 82. I don't see a lead change happening.
But still, Reese, you can't call it until the fat lady sings, and at the moment that's the way it is.
Yeah, the fat lady is staying very silent right now, so we can't really make any big predictions. Looking at it the way things are now, Team Mad, while they are incredibly fast, it might be a little too late for that to make any conceivable difference. They are coming into the pit. Maybe they'll have a bit of an ace up their sleeve in this last couple of hours.
Could we see their fastest driver? Well, actually, sorry, the fastest driver is David at the moment.
So that's yeah, the prediction you've made came true already, Corey. It seems.
Exactly.
So eyes on the V Apex racing car in LMP1 as they come into the Porsche curves. We'll see if they pit this time around. Chuck seems to have the car worked out through the Porsche curves. It's just certain straights he seems to suffer on a little.
I think he will pit this lap. I think he's on his 18th or 19th lap. No, he's not. Oh no, sorry, he's around maybe 3/4 of the way through his stint at the moment.
So they're very off strategy compared to turn 1 here. Yeah. So it'll be a while before we see that eventuate.
So their last stint was only 12 laps. So
well, there's a bit of a change in the Grizzly Motorsports versus Kinetic Racing battle for the lead in LMP1. Now that Joshua Wolf is in the Grizzly car, the gap's actually staying pretty stable. So it was a good call by Grizzly to put Wolf in the car because he's managing to stall Kinetic's pursuit somewhat.
well, he's not stalling it. I think he's starting to gain some time. Last lap, 3:18.72 to Josh and a 3:19 flat to Christian. So they're not really not stalling at the moment, but they're trying to gain a bit of time back.
Yeah, certainly. Wolf is pushing quite hard. Lines that he's taking through those challenging corners, Indianapolis and Arnage, definitely shows that he means business in that Audi. And through the Porsche curves, you can see the Audi does have a little bit less front bite than the Porsche does, but you can see that the cornering speed of the car is quite impressive. So coming out of the Porsche curves through Maison Blanche. See what kind of lap time Wolf can set on this occasion. Getting a bit leery over the curbs at the Ford chicanes, and that's a 3:19.2, so a little slower, but still, it's quite a quick lap time.
Now, dare I say this, Reese, but could we see Josh in for the rest of till the end of the race? Because there's only 2.5 hours to go.
It would be a good decision.
Not a big stint, but it's not a small stint either. 2.75 hours in a P1 car. I could say sort of relaxing. You get a rhythm going and you go to the checkered flag. So
that's it. I mean, one aspect of 24-hour racing is you do enough of them and you tend to come to expect that certain things will happen. So you get into a rhythm and the time just flies by, and eventually 2.5 hours seems like basically nothing to you. So a stint of about 40-45 minutes in the LMP1s should work out to, I think, 2 more stops to get home. The last stop probably being a little shorter.
It'll be 45, then be 90, be an hour and a half, I think. 2, maybe 3. Yeah, at least 2.
The Talk Freak racing car is in the pits in LMP2. Michael Diaz giving the car to Martin Yoon. So we'll see what they can do from here. Martin, his pace seems pretty consistent with the rest of the drivers in that car, setting times about the low mid-32s at the fastest. So a good decision by them to put him back in the car, but we'll see how he goes relative to David Baker, who has stayed in the Team Mad car. Very long stop too. So from Talk Freak, so they would have probably taken tyres. In the HPD, it is possible to double, even triple stint tyres at a place like LeMans, so you would do well to try and make those tyres last as long as possible, but it obviously is a tyre change stop for the Talk Freak guys.
Can we get that on the quote wall? And also as well, the track temp is 27, so it's what I could say the sweet spot for maybe doing triple stints if you really want to on those tyres. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually quite nice conditions out there at the moment at Le Mans. Mostly cloudy, 21-degree air temperature with, as you said, Corey, a 27-degree track temperature. Afternoon, northwest winds at 18 kilometers an hour, so a tiny bit of a tailwind, I think, down the Mulsanne. And low humidity as well, so actually quite nice conditions out there. Definitely shows in how comfortable some of these drivers are.
Yeah, and also as well, going back to drivers staying until the finish, I do believe that we could start seeing driver swaps for those cars to make it to the end. So we are in that range of you could take a driver to the finish in the car.
Yeah, certainly, and I mean it's not uncommon in sim racing 24-hour events these days for drivers to stay in the car for upwards of 4 hours at a time. Some of them even in excess of 6. You know, so you do have to be slightly crazy to do this kind of sim racing. Anyway, so not too much of a stretch. V Apex Racing, meanwhile, in the pits. So Chuck Chambliss bringing that one in.
And that stint was, if I could do my calculation, 12 laps. So not really big stints compared to the other cars. So.
And it is going to be a driver change. So as Eric Smith jumps back into that car, actually having not driven the car since the earlier stints of the race, he's back in there, and the battle between Talk Freak and Team Mad in LMP2 is now down to a nice round little number, 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So they're continuing to get it done up there at the front.
Well, I think all Talk Freak Racing I know they're going to do is keep it clean and keep consistency, and you will have a win at the end of the race.
That's it. That's all you need to do. Oh, having said that, little bit of a slide there for Martin Ewan, but meanwhile, Turn 1 heroes and V Apex Atlantic, Eric Smith just getting that car out, and they are nose to tail for position here for 4th and 5th in LMP1. So This is quite the interesting fight going on here.
Stefan full attacking mode. He's got used all the hybrid boost down the straight. He's going to hit 330 if he's lucky. Not Eric Smith though. He's staying behind. He's serving hybrid, I think, for later on in the race.
Yeah, that's there. Remember the Porsche. You can only use, I believe, 6 megajoules of power around a lap of Le Mans, so that's what you're limited to per lap. So these guys have to be careful when and where they use it. We'll see if Stefan loses out in terms of top speed down this final section of the straight, since he's just absolutely massacred that hybrid storage to try and pull a gap on the V-Apex car. Tell you what, it doesn't seem to be hurting the gap all that much. Eric Smith, you got to remember, still getting used to the car once again after a long time out of it. Last time he was in the car was lap 103. He's now come into the car again right at the end, so a lot will have changed in that amount of time. Different track conditions, different set of circumstances in terms of the traffic around him. But should only take a few laps at most for that to happen. Eric also set that car's fastest lap as well, a 3-minute 19.26 on lap 10. So he's got some pace under him, he has.
Yeah, I think what we've got to try and do is get used to the track conditions. He's been about 260 laps last time he was in the car, so track conditions would change, rubber, everything would have changed between now and before. So I guess I would say give him 2 laps and then he'll be back on maybe attacking pace if he wants to get that position down.
Well, his first lap out of the pits. Of course, this isn't going to be a representative lap time, but does look to me as though the Turn 1 Heroes car is continuing to string that gap out. So we'll see what they can do from here on out. The gap up the front, meanwhile, is still at a stalemate. Continuing to be at 44 seconds or thereabouts.
Last lap times are within a tenth of each other, so they are. It's basically dead still for the race lead. Turn 1 Heroes nearly getting into the rear of the HPD there, the Kinetic Racing 85 car, at the moment P3 in class.
Yeah, ouch. That's a little bit awkward. Would have cost them slightly, but no matter. No harm, no foul. But a little bit of a slower lap that time around for our leading car. Joshua Wolf, a 3-minute 20.285. So he's suffered a tiny bit of an issue on that lap. I believe it might have been traffic or something to that effect. Still managing to lap at a very consistent and fast pace. So if that gap goes under 40 seconds, then we'll know that there's a little bit of trouble for our leading car. looking down through the field, it seems that... Oh, there might be a slight battle forming soon, even though the cars are incredibly far apart between the 991 and the number 61 in GTE. Dwayne Burns is back in the Avatar Auto Racing Ferrari, and he's set a lap time under 4 minutes his first time out, so they're doing okay there, but Jan-Philipp Weed just set a 4:03 in the Road Bastards car, so I think that car may have just had a pit stop or some kind of incident. So Burns has just come out of the pits. He'll be looking to try and keep that car nice and tidy. From the looks of that Ferrari, they've been through a lot.
Yeah, they've hadn't had the good side of the race. So.
Yeah, I've actually just gone back and checked on lap 327. The 991 had a spin coming out of Tete Rouge. So that's the reason why they've lost a bit of time. Obviously, they're not in any position to lose their current placing, but still, it's not something that you really want to happen.
No, you don't really want to heat up those tyres. And if you want to, well, the GTE, you can change tyres and refuel, so that removes the matter of trying to get these tyres a double stint. So.
Yeah, meanwhile, the Torque Freak Racing Radeon, the leading GTE, has just jumped out of the pits and has been overtaken by the overall leader, so that's 2 class leaders in one shot.
You could nearly make that 3 because the leader of P2 is just coming by the lap of the 3rd place in GTE.
Yeah, so there we go. In a couple of seconds, we'll have leader of LMP1, leader of LMP2, and leader of GTE.
All in the same shot.
Yeah, and in order once the P2 overtakes the GTE.
Quick, everyone, get the screenshots out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's an interesting question to ask. How often do you see that sort of thing happen in a 24-hour race? I'd imagine not very often. So meanwhile, back to the LMP1 lead. Challoner versus Wolf. It's continuing to just be a battle of numbers more than anything else. Grizzly's still the faster car right now, with Wolf now in the car, but the gap is still hovering just over the 40 to 50 second mark. So as we watch Joshua Wolf coming through the Porsche curves, I gotta wonder whether they will be keeping him in for the rest of the race, Corey. We did mention it before. I mean, I would expect them to, but still does seem like a kind of long time to keep a driver in there.
Yeah, well, looking back at his stints, his first stint he was in the car, he went for 63 laps, so I think we've got about 40-something laps to go, so it wouldn't be too big of a stint for him this race.
Yeah, definitely not. Oh, he got slightly unstuck in the Dunlop chicane, but it doesn't seem to have hurt him all that much.
That was a big slowdown there coming out of...
Yeah, it's quite interesting how the slowdowns work here at Le Mans. iRacing actually worked with the Automobile Club de l'Ouest, who runs the event in real life, to make sure that the track limits were similar to those in real life. And the way slowdowns work, especially through this section of the circuit, quite interesting. You are able to use a fair bit of the curbs, even go beyond them a little bit, but particularly on the exit of Tete Rouge, you have to have at least 2 wheels back on the tarmac by the time the curb ends, and no later. So once that happens, that's when you get pinged with a slowdown.
And then also as well, because the slowdown system, it goes off the fastest lap of the race, meaning that basically the P2s and the GTEs can shortcut that bit every time they can, but they'll still get away with it, so...
Yeah, well, as car speed goes up, it becomes a little bit more difficult to coordinate that sort of thing.
Just a bit of an extra strategy element for the faster cars, so...
Yeah. So the gap between the leaders now under 40 seconds, incidentally. So the opening part of that lap by Joshua Wolf was not optimal.
I think Christian is starting to turn up the wick with the hybrid, because his last lap was 2 seconds, or just nearly 2 seconds faster than Josh, so... Here we go, the game to get the lead back is coming for that 83 machine.
It certainly is, so... It's very strategic, the way that you have to manage the hybrid in these cars. It's very much mental as it is physical. Driving one of those LMP1 cars, you have to think, do I work the hybrid really hard in a certain section of the track and lose out everywhere else, or do I just back off, lose a bit of time, but then gain back even more once I start out, getting that pace back? So Challoner obviously making it work for him quite nicely right now.
Yeah, it's all about thinking when you want to use it and when your competitor is using it, because if you're using it at exactly the same place that your competitor is, you're not really gaining a lot of time. But also as well, it's, as Chandler's doing it, he's 3 laps to get the boost up to where he wants, and then basically abusing that boost button for 5 laps maybe, and then off it and then back on it again. That's what it's all about, is keeping the hybrid boost up and using it when you need to and when you want to. So
yeah, that's exactly right, and also being very careful over those curbs in the last couple of turns. So 39.879 seconds at the line is the gap.
3-minute 20.2 for the Grizzly Motorsport car last lap, and then a 3:18.5, so 2 seconds per lap quicker. And they are catching, and I could dare say, but could we see a battle near to the next pit stop or so? Maybe the next 2?
Well, that depends, because we've got to also consider the fact that the Audi's pit stops are generally faster, thanks to the smaller fuel tank, but the same rate of refilling. So that's one opportunity that Grizzly Motorsports will have to eke out a bit more of a gap. I think maybe the Workiva Kinetic Racing guys are aware of that, and they're turning up the wick in terms of pace to try and cover off Grizzly for those last couple of stops.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Josh or Chandler are taken out of the car for one of the stints to put another driver in. But I think I could say that it'd be a definite yes for Chandler hopping out of the car, because he's been in the car since lap 311. So that's a pretty long time to be in the car for. But I would not expect him to be in the car till the end of the race.
Yeah, certainly. That's, I think, almost 4 hours in the car at the moment. So you should be handing that car over to someone else, probably at the next pit stop, unless he's completely insane, which is not out of the ordinary in endurance racing.
Must have a lot of coffee and sugary treats beside him to do that.
Oh well, when it comes to keeping yourself alert during an endurance race, I generally find that that going a little more natural and holistic is the key to staying alert. I mean, I don't know if you have any strategies for dealing with long races, Corey, but when I race, I generally focus on eating grains and stuff that gives you a slow energy burn so that I can stay alert for longer. What about you?
Well, I've been in races like this, but I do dare say that it's the way I stay up is I don't. The longest stint I've ever done in a race is possibly a whole 3-hour race, but never longer than that. But I usually, if I want to and do, plan a day or two ahead, you know, going to bed at maybe for a endurance race in the middle of the night, going to bed maybe 3 o'clock the night before, so you sort of line yourself up for the next day. It's all about, I usually do about a day or two setting up, getting ready for it. 83 is now the pits.
Yes, indeed. Number 83 jumping in for that particular stop, and we'll see if Challoner can hand it over. But continuing on from that discussion, I guess, you know, what we're just talking about, Corey, it really goes to show that endurance racing is not just about the race itself. It's not even about the race and qualifying and practice. You've got to prepare your body as well for endurance racing, and of course real life racing drivers will absolutely trump us all in virtual racing when it comes to physical preparation, because they have to keep themselves fit all the time for jumping into real race cars and dealing with the G-forces. But preparing your sleeping patterns, preparing, you know, when you're at your most alert, there's an awful lot of preparation that goes into it, which I think a lot of people not familiar with endurance racing wouldn't realize.
Exactly, it's you know, I get I get asked a lot, you know, why are you staying up or going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm always like, well, it's either because I want to prepare myself for an endurance race on the Sunday, or the reason because I do a stint 2-3 o'clock on that morning. But it really is all about body preparation and what you do during the race and maybe a couple hours before it, because it's all about what you can gain a tiny bit that could really do you for the long run on the track and also inside your sim. So yeah, preparation is key basically for an endurance race like this.
Yeah, it certainly is. And looking at the broadcast chat, the gaming redneck noting that the Audi can only do 11 laps without saving fuel, while the Porsche can do a full 12 laps without saving. So if they want to be able to keep up, then they do have to save fuel a little bit. But as I've said quite a few times before, that smaller fuel tank can really help the Audi in certain places.
Yeah, and I think, and if I do remember correctly, it's faster on the stop because of the fueling rate hasn't been fixed up for the Audi. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct. And you know, I have seen some people call for the Audi to be patched so that the fueling rate is a little slower to equalize the cars on pit stops. But the thing that you got to remember is the racing isn't just decided in the pit stops. It's also how the cars handle the track and they handle their stint lengths full stop. The Audi, yes, does have an advantage over the Porsche when it comes to pit stop times, but you got to remember, in terms of the stint length, it can't go as long. It also has a few differences to the Porsche relative to how it achieves its speed. Its downforce and its level of straight line speed. Also, how the hybrid regenerates. That has a big effect as well. So I think the cars are actually quite well balanced at the moment in terms of how everything fits together. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
Well, yeah, I do think, you know, between each track, there's no, you know, one car is dominant every track. It's always different track you go to. It's always different car. For example, OEC at Spa, it was the Audi that basically trumped over the Porsches during that race because it had the straight line speed advantage, and also because of the fuel rate having, I believe, a 6 or 7 second quicker stop. It was basically the dominant car. But when we go to Imola, I believe next Sunday for OEC, it could be a completely different ball game for the LMP1 class.
Yeah, well, you got to remember also the first round of that series at Road America, the Porsche absolutely stomped all over the Audi because, in terms of what the outright straight line speed can be, the Porsche does have the advantage over the Audi, and also has plenty of opportunities around a track like Road America, also a track like Le Mans, to regenerate the hybrid. Because you got to remember, the Audi and the Porsche regenerate their hybrid energy slightly differently. Both cars can regenerate under brakes by recovering kinetic energy from the brakes as they heat up. But the Porsche has the added advantage of being able to regenerate under acceleration from the turbocharger. As it spins around, it spins a little generator that also feeds more energy back into the system. So balancing these two cars is a very difficult thing to do, and I mean, it was somewhat achievable in real life. So iRacing obviously have a little bit more at their disposal. They don't have to draft in certain rules and get teams to approve or veto changes. iRacing can just change a couple of lines of code and make certain parts of the car behave differently. So it is a little bit easier, but you know, at the end of the day, it's how they race in the field, so to speak, that really determines what they will do. At this rate, you have an Audi and a Porsche battling up the front, and they seem pretty well matched at the moment.
Yeah, it's the part of racing these days is people complain about BoP and EOT, but I think the EOT part is another conversation and argument for another day. But the BoP, especially in the GT class, it's a big debate. You know, one car's OP here and another car's you know, especially at Le Mans this year, how the Porsche and the Ford, like the Porsche was what people said was the OP car by far, but it does play into the hands of some manufacturers. You know, at different tracks, you know, they might not win at Le Mans, but they could win the overall championship with the BoP they have. So
yeah, and I mean, that's when you mentioned equivalence of technology. That's another thing I also didn't consider. The Porsche and the Audi are actually in two different subclasses of hybrid technology. They have different levels of power available to them. So I mean, for those not in the know, the way the World Endurance Championship balanced these cars when they were racing was to place them into a class depending on how much energy they could deploy around a lap of Le Mans. And the Porsche, I think, was in either the 6 megajoule or the 8 megajoule class, and the Audi in, I believe, the 4 megajoule category. So the Porsche has more energy with which to deploy around Le Mans than the Audi does, and you know it's the case with every track, but it's determined in terms of how long the track they're racing at is relative to Le Mans. Le Mans' level of energy deployment is the theoretical maximum that the car can have. So that's another thing that you've got to put into the equation. It's not just about pit stop time.
Yeah, but Le Mans, if the people say Le Mans shouldn't be the benchmark, but it is, and it should be, because it's the longest track they go to on their calendar. Spa is the second longest at 7K. This track's 13.6, so it is by far the longest. So this is the track where all the cars are hitting their theoretical max. So it is a good benchmark for the P1 cars to get their EO equivalence of technology in. As I believe the gap could be closing or gaining, because the leader has pitted. So
yes, indeed. So the gap is now out to 64 seconds after that pit stop. So 22nd longest stop for the Workiva Kinetic racing car. So they would have changed tires, I believe. Grizzly would be in the middle of a double stint, I believe.
Also, that is another thing we forgot to mention, is that the P1 cars, that could be slow down there for the leader. But the P1 cars, the only cars in this race that can do both fuel and tyres is the GT. It used to be that all three classes you couldn't do fuel and tyres at the same time. But I believe, I think for this year in the real life WEC, it has changed. So, mistake me if I'm wrong, that the P1 and GT can do fuel and tyres at the same time.
I think that might be the case. I'm sure someone in the broadcast chat will correct us if we are wrong. That's one thing that you do have to consider that really changes the dynamic of how these races work, because if you have to do a short fuel stop and it comes out to 30 seconds worth of filling the car, then you could afford to change the tires as well, because a tire change takes round about I think 15 seconds. I mean, that is if the car changes fuel and tires at the same time. You could also fit a driver change in as well. The driver change is another thing you've got to consider, because iRacing limits a driver change to exactly 30 seconds across the board. So if you're looking to take a driver out, put a new one in, that's another thing you've got to consider. And these teams will have been considering all of this throughout their strategy planning for the race.
Yeah, another factor for Le Mans, it's not how you race or how consistent you are, it's what strategy you have can change the way or the lead of the race. It's all about driver swap time, tyre change when you do it. But another thing, as you said, short fuel stop at the end could be a possibility, but you can't be caught up on, I'm at the end of a double stint and I need to change tyres and short fuel. Because when that does happen, that's a bit of a blowout if you have gained on the person in front or behind you.
Yes, indeed. And we have been corrected in the broadcast chat, Corey. Apparently, in the World Endurance Championship, all classes can do both fuel and tyres at the same time. But they changed the GTE class to match what IMSA does. Because
Oh,
remember,
okay.
the GTE classes race on both sides of the Atlantic in, well, I mean, it's called the World Endurance Championship, but I think the vast majority of the races are in Europe, so you do use the both sides of the Atlantic sort of deal. Do that sort of thing.
Yeah, they do. Yes, the World Endurance Championship do race in Mexico. I think that's the only race they do over the Atlantic. So, for the super season, that is. I don't believe they're doing it at Kona.
They are going to do a race at Sebring in the World Endurance Championship.
Oh yeah, I forgot the 1,000 miles of Sebring, I believe.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Or is it the 1,500 miles? I'm not quite sure.
I did see a picture of the billboard outside of Sebring, and it did say hashtag Sebring 1000. So
Right. So there we go, fully corrected in that respect. Meanwhile, thinking back to the action on track, Turn 1 heroes continuing in their pursuit of V-Apex Racing Atlantic. They've just come out of the pits on the last lap. So Stefan Schlacher versus Eric Smith will certainly be one to watch coming up to the end. We've actually gone past the 22-hour mark in the race, so less than 2 hours to go here.
And if you were Grizzly Motorsport or Kinetic Racing number 83, what do you do with your drivers now?
It's a difficult call to make, isn't it?
It really is, because Christian's been in that car for nearly approximately 4 hours, whereas Joshua Wolf will be in the car at the end of the race shorter than what his first stint was. So if Kinetic do put another driver in that car and is slower than what Christian is at the moment, that's it. Race is over for them. But it is one of the hardest choices, I think, so far this race.
Yes, well, John King in the broadcast chat did say that Christian is a driver that does not tire easily, so I think the implication there is that they will be keeping him in until the end, but it still is quite a long time for a driver to be staying in a car.
He was in lap 311, and how many laps have we got to go so far?
Well, we're on lap 387 right now, and approximately 34 laps to go in the LMP1 class, so I mean...
That's nearly 100 laps, I think, approximate calculation. So that is something to do. Nearly 100 laps in a P1 car at Le Mans.
Yeah, 300. Well, yeah, a lap is 3 minutes 17 seconds. So 317 minutes. That's in excess of 5 hours of driving. Of course, if you're lapping that quick. Will turn out to be even longer when you factor in pit stops and variance in lap times.
So I do believe if Christian is in the car till the end of the race, and we do get him into the broadcast chat, I think we do need to give him a round of applause for this final stint if he does stay in the car. Can you do 100 laps at Le Mans in the P1 car?
I'm sure I could if I was given the opportunity.
I think I would too, but I might.
I think the question within your question is, could we keep up a certain level of pace and consistency in those 100 laps?
Yes, true.
Because you know there was the literal question that you asked, but there was also the unasked question.
Yes, can you keep pace? Can you stay consistent? will you not crash the car in those 100 laps?
That's exactly it. Because at the end of the race, I mean, it's one of racing's biggest cliche statements. To finish first, you must first finish. I mean, like, it wouldn't be a cliche if it wasn't true.
Exactly. Look at Toyota, 2017.
Oh,
They were
please
first.
no. I cry.
I'm sorry to trigger everyone, but Toyota 2017.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Exactly. They were leading. They were 3 minutes to go. They did not finish. So that cliche is 100% true to those Toyota fans.
Look, no, Toyota won the 3 hours and 55 minutes of Le Mans, okay?
You mean the
The 23
23 hour? Yeah.
Shush. It's a no, I'm not tired. I'm not completely out of it.
Are you sure about that race?
I meant what I said, of course.
And then it's also sort of like saying, I completely forgot who won the Bass's 12 hour, but you could say that they won the Bass's 11 hour and 45 minutes this year. So
Yeah.
there's that one as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, of course.
But anyways, back to the racing. I do believe that Grizzly has gained so far on Kinetic racing.
They have actually. Joshua Wolf has been lapping very nicely there. He actually put 5/10 on Challoner on the last lap, which is quite interesting.
Could Chandler be getting tired? Not consistent enough at the moment.
Oh,
Or
come on,
faster.
it's only a few tenths, Corey. He was faster last lap than on his previous, God, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 laps.
Okay, just abandon that question then.
Jeez. In terms of traffic, it looks to me like both drivers have had a reasonable amount of luck with traffic. Actually, having said that, Joshua Wolf had his windshield full of GTE as he passed the leading Torque Freak Racing Porsche coming out of the Porsche curves. So that will put paid to whatever lap time he was pursuing there. I suppose at this point of the race, it's not necessarily about lap time. Checking in on GTE, meanwhile, we haven't talked about them all that much, so let's give them a little bit of coverage just to update. Torque Freak Racing Radeon still leads in that class with Road Bastards and Avatar still technically on the same lap, but it seems to me like the 991 has the advantage over the number 61. There's a 1 minute and 45 seconds gap between them. Elite West Racing and Majors Ferrari are technically in pursuit of each other as well, but Majors Ferrari still has quite the gap to Elite West. 2 minutes and 27 seconds. And the last running car in GTE is the Roadhog Racing car, Richard Regan Jr. at the wheel of that car, but they are 99 laps down on the overall leaders, 50 laps down on their class leaders. So they're just plugging away, looking to get points at this stage.
They'd be just plugging away, and when they get to the end, they can say that they've finished the Majors 24 Hours of Le Mans.
That's it.
The next question would be, did you win it? Well, see.
Yeah, see, there was this thing where, yeah, but the car ahead of them in class, they've got quite a gap to JF Godin, 32 laps between those guys. The Underdog Racing car. The pink Porsche with JF Godin at the wheel of that one. So it's all looking pretty stable in GTE at the moment. But meanwhile, Team Mad has just come out of the laps, second place in LMP2, and they got the class leader just behind them. So this could be them going a lap down on their class lead. Yep, so there you go. That's it. So Team Mad will go a lap down here, but Talk Freak Racing will still have yet to pit, won't they?
I believe they do. So I do believe, Reese, your tiredness came out there. I think you did not say out of the pits. I do say. I think you said out of the laps. So go wide.
Really?
Yeah, Team Mad.
Oh, jeez.
Team Mad went wide a bit there at the second chicane.
Yeah, they did. That's not what you'd want. I suppose Paul Smith, actually, you got to consider this is his first lap in the car, so...
Oh no, it's first lap since... Sorry, Reese, but first lap since lap 91 he's been in the car.
Yeah, so he's got quite the task ahead of him, so that would explain the few mistakes. Paul Smith just getting himself used to that machine again, and let's have a look at his lap times in his stint previous. Sitting laps around the 3-minute 34, 3-minute 35 sort of bracket, so not quite as quick as Martin Yoon would be at the moment. So Team Mad, I think, may fall back unless one of Talk Freak's slower drivers is put in after Martin, but I don't know. I wouldn't put it past Talk Freak to keep Yoon in the car for the rest of the race at this stage.
Yeah, well, he's been in... How long has he been in that car for?
He's been in since lap 354.
Yeah, so I think it would be a good guess that they would keep him in the car at the end of the race.
That is actually, I think Martin would be coming up to the end of a stint right now. I would expect him in, actually, in the pits.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, okay, there we go.
Meaning that Team Mad will get their lap back.
Yep, it's only temporary, but I don't know if they'd have much of a chance at getting the lead back unless the Talk Freak Racing car is involved in a crash or something to that effect.
All Talk Freak need is a little tap on the wall or a little spin into the wall to have their race fall down the hill a little bit and let Team Mad catch up and maybe win it.
That's it. Oh, the Talk Freak GTE just went off and flashing his lights, so obviously unhappy. Yeah, had only just come out of the pits. Georg Gruber at the wheel of that car now. So, oh, that was, I think, almost a coming together with the Team Mad car. That's an interesting incident, actually. I'm not quite sure what went on there. It looks like Gruber went off on his own. The Team Mad car didn't do anything.
Looking... Yeah, he's just lost the rear and they must have thought that the Team Mad car behind was going for a gap and... Yeah, strange on that one.
Well, didn't look to me like the LMP2 car was at fault there at all. He was way too far back to attempt to move anyway.
It's either that or he's on the push and talk because going down the loss end of the first chicane, he did flash his lights a couple of times, so... Josh Nowak approach, question mark?
Not quite sure, but either way, it hasn't harmed the GTE leaders' gap in any way, shape or form. They still enjoy a gap of 3 laps over their closest competitors in the 991 machine. So it would take quite the horrible incident to put Talk Freak out of this one.
You know what, Ruth? I think we need to pay homage to a very creative car. 629, the Ruckers Kev show. I think their paint is extravagantly amazing and creative.
Yes, certainly. I mean, I have been following the Rutgers Kev show a little bit. New sim racing podcast started up by Rutgers Kev, a streamer on Twitch, and he certainly does well at the moment with his show. So they've brought in a paint with their catchphrase. Kevin O'Keefe, of course, being Rutgers Kev. Currently running in 5th place in LMP2 right now. How many laps has Kevin been in that car? Oh, he's actually quite a fair amount.
About roughly 20 laps, I'm looking at it.
Welcome back, Cam. It's been a while.
Don't worry, I haven't gone anywhere. You've just been chatting away quietly.
Meanwhile, Bombshell Motorsports in the pits, car number 99. So Eric Micker bringing that car in. Now, Eric was last in the car 2 driver changes ago. Would expect him in towards the end here.
Yeah, I'd presume he'll be in to finish with only an hour and 30 odd minutes to go.
Well, looks like there is a bit of a fight forming in GTE. Dwayne Burns in the Avatar Auto Racing car actually starting to close in on the number 991. So we might see that that battle eventuate to something different. Noticing that Jakob Lehmann has taken over that car a few laps ago from Jan Philip Wied, so he's going to get a well-deserved rest.
Yeah, it looked like Dwayne was actually about just under 2 seconds quicker that lap than the 991 car, so possibly could see that gap close up and possibly even see a fight for position later in the race.
Just going to talk about the leaders here for a couple of seconds. Joshua Wolf, Christine Chandler, 320.876 for that 83 car last lap, and 320.822 for the 48 car last lap. So they are pretty close on their pace at the moment.
Yeah, they definitely are. Those leaders still keeping quite the consistent gap. So I don't know. I still think it's too early to make a prediction on how this is going to turn out. You know, you think about proportionally how these races work out in terms of time. Has been a fair bit of this race has gone down, but we've still got a fair bit to go, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. An hour and 30 may seem like not too long, but in racing terms, it's actually quite a bit of time. So that's roughly 2 stints, depending on the car. So you do actually still have quite a bit of time. And although it is starting to get to that point near the end of the race, you may actually start to find that drivers will actually possibly start to make mistakes and that sort of thing. With it being that close to the end, they'll start to relax and they'll start to not be as concentrated because they'll know they're that much close to the end of the race.
Right, well, an hour and 30 to go in the race, so we are going to jump off for a second and take a bit of a break. We'll be right back very soon. You're watching the Majors Le Mans 24 Hours. It's a slow burner, this one, but things are building up to a very exciting end. Still got fights to be decided in all these classes. You're watching on V8's Online. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back, everybody, once again to the Majors Le Mans 24-hour here on V8's Online. My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, Cameron Dance and Corey Ott. Once again, Cam, you're with me at the moment, and well, this battle between Avatar and Road Bastards in GTE is really starting to warm up. The gap is under 100 seconds now. Dwayne Burns actually doing quite well versus Jakob Lehmann in that number 61 Ferrari.
Yeah, absolutely. Burns has been closing that gap ever so slightly, just slowly but surely, eventually closing that gap over the past few laps. And it's starting to actually show some signs that he could possibly be a threat to gaining a position here on Lehmann in the next hour or so.
Yes, indeed. And it's certainly been a good race from Road Bastards so far. They actually started behind the Avatar Auto Racing car, now ending up in front of them in second position, but they put Jakob Lehmann in the car, and while Jakob is still quite quick in that Porsche, he's not quite as quick as some of the times that we've seen set by Jan-Philipp Weid and Wolfgang Wildenauer. So looks like Dwayne Burns actually taking some chunks of time out of him. As I say that, Dwayne's actually coming into the pits, Cam.
Yeah, he actually has. So that'll be for some fuel and I presume for tyres. But yeah, Lemon's been a little bit slower than his teammates. He's about a second or so off the likes of Wolfgang and the rest of his crew. So not doing too bad though as far as lap times, but that gap is slowly but surely coming down. It'll be interesting to see what sort of pace Dwayne Burns that can do once he comes out of the pit lane.
Yes, indeed. So looks to me like Burns will be staying in the car. It is up on the jack, so confirmed it is a tyre stop. Looking like a pretty rapid one, actually, considering that he's starting to rev up the engine already. Just waiting for the rest of the fuel to get in that car, and then he will be away. There we go. So Avatar Auto Racing back out of the pits, and looking at their driving stints throughout the previous parts of the race, Dwayne has taken over the majority of the running of this car in the last half of the race, sharing with Shane Bowen for much of this last half. So he's looking pretty comfortable in that car, despite the little bit of damage that it seems to have.
Yeah, he's actually been doing quite well in the last couple of hours, despite that damage. So if that damage wasn't actually, he might actually have a little bit of extra pace so that he would be able to catch up quicker. But yeah, him and Shane Bowen both obviously from the Aussie and Z side of the world, so they've been going at it for the best part of the final half of the race, more or less.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult for some teams to coordinate in races like this. It really becomes a worldwide effort, especially in sim racing, when you have people racing from their homes and not actually having to all go to the same location to race. So in the case of some international teams, it becomes a case of bringing in drivers from around the world to race. Or if you're an Australian-only team and you can't get an international driver in to help out with the stints where it's not necessarily the best time it can be, well, you'll have some people losing a bit of sleep or having to mess up their sleep schedules.
Yeah, exactly. When you've got an international team consisting of guys like from Oz and Z, Europe, and then America, it actually does play into the hands of some guys, as they can have a sleep at their proper times and then others can have a sleep at their proper times. So nobody's really having to juggle any sleep schedules or have to wake up super early or super late or anything like that. So it actually does help a lot. I've been in that sort of situation where I've had my European teammates do the start of the race, and then I've hopped in around the mid part and then more or less done the later part, and then they've jumped in at the end when it's close to midnight here. So yeah, it does actually help a little bit if you're on one side of the world. But yeah, does sometimes become a bit of a disadvantage when you've kind of got to bring in drivers who you don't really necessarily know how quick they're going to be.
Yeah, certainly. Well, looking at the number 83 at the moment, and bit of news from our director, they actually missed the pit entry. They were planning to pit, but missed. So that is slightly concerning. Are they going to make it around? This is their 13th lap on a stint, and we know that the Porsche can go for 12. So either Christian Challoner is doing an amazing job saving fuel in that car, or they've managed to somehow get some ace up their sleeve that we're not quite aware of. It does seem to be driving at a pretty rapid pace still, so I don't think it's much of a problem.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's actually happened there as far as how they've managed to gain that extra lap, but it seems it doesn't appear to be affecting them too much. They might be just running a slightly more conservative engine mix to save a little bit of fuel so they can actually make it back to pit lane, but doesn't appear to be as though it's on maximum conservation or anything like that. So a little bit weird, but this also could play into the hands of them as they could possibly get the overcut later in the race on the Grizzly Motorsports car.
Yeah, I got to wonder, it may have been intentional from them to miss the pits the way they did. They might have been saving a bit of fuel all of that last stint. That's likely what's gone on there. They've managed to just eke out one extra lap, and that may play into their hands, because we've got to remember, the Audi can only do 11 laps on a stint without fuel saving. That is quite significant. Whoa, goodness me, actually, the leader almost had a run-in with the GTE leader coming out of Tete Rouge. That was close. But Joshua Wolf, if he wants to stay in touch, of course, he's going to have the fueling time advantage that the Audi has in the pits, but he will have to pit more often. So that gap may very well be brought back down soon if the Workiva Kinetic Racing guys have got their strategy worked out.
Yeah, exactly. I think they might actually be starting to reverse engineer the race. I know they're very, very good on strategy, and we've seen in the past events that they've actually managed to win races on strategy alone. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out and whether they are actually saving a little bit extra fuel, like maybe on an engine map that's just 1 or 2 clicks slightly more fuel conservative. So it'll be very interesting to see. Their times haven't actually dropped off too far. So it's very, very much going to be a matter of what this is actually going to do to their race and how much of an impact it's going to have, because it's also going to mean that at the later part of the stint and the final stop, they're actually going to be stopped for shorter.
Yes, indeed. Well, it's an interesting conundrum to think about as the race is about to enter its final hour in the next 15 or so minutes. It's certainly not over yet. Both of these teams will be fighting to the very bitter end to try and get this win. In terms of the lead battles and the other classes, though, Talk Freak Racing Arnage still has the advantage over Team Mad, and by quite a bit, I would say, because Martin Ewan has the pace advantage over Paul Smith in the number 10 car. And we did see that when the Team Mad car took their last pit stop, they actually lost the lap to Talk Freak before they themselves pitted. So I get the feeling that unless something happens to Talk Freak, that's basically how it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's the case at this stage. It doesn't appear that the Team Mad car has a little bit extra pace than it did earlier on with the different driver in it. So effectively, this is Talk Freak's race to lose at this stage, but even with an hour left, LeMans is a track you have to respect, and it can bite even in the most unsuspecting times. So you've got to keep your wits about you and make sure you don't make any mistakes.
Currently on screen the Road Bastards car. Number 991 likely to pit this lap. Jakob Lehmann has been in that car for a full stint. The last time that he was in the car was quite some time ago. He jumped out of the car on lap 182. So that would have been during the mid-stage of the race, and they are now on lap 343 in that car, about to get passed by an LMP1. That's the Grizzly Evolution car that we were following along with earlier on in the broadcast. Oh, that is a little bit awkward for him. Of course, Lehmann has every right to hold his line, but I'm fairly certain that that Peter Kaig in that car would either be quite unhappy with Lehmann or maybe just a little unhappy at himself for going for a move a little bit too early. Who knows? But either way, they've gone on, and no harm, no foul, I suppose, for those guys. And there we go. True to prediction, Jakob Lehmann into the pits.
Yes, I presume Lehmann will stay in the car for the remainder of the race. But as I just pointed out earlier, that whole managing the traffic thing when you're in the likes of an LMP1 car or in a faster class, you've kind of got to think about your moves and where you're going to pass the other car, the slower class car, because if you don't commit to the move, it can sometimes actually be worse than actually committing to a risky move, because you have that indecisiveness between what the GTE expects you to do and what you're actually going to do. So you've kind of got to make it a little bit obvious as to what you want to do, but you've also got to think about it and not really take too big of a risk, especially if you're in a decent position like the guys at Grizzly Evolution are.
That's exactly right. But I suppose, you know, traffic negotiation is a two-way street. You've got to also make sure that that the GT, from the GTE perspective, I suppose, that that they remain predictable. But Lehmann is out of that car now, and Wolfgang Wildenauer has jumped back in. Meanwhile, Elite West Racing and the Majors Ferrari, cars 450 and 404 in GTE, they look to be getting involved in a battle very soon. 5 seconds quicker was Griffin Gardner on that last lap, and he's just coming around to begin another 3-minute 51.064. So compared to Tom Dreiling in the Elite West Racing car, his last lap was a 3-minute 56.257. Goodness me, that is quite the advantage that Griffin Gardner is enjoying at the moment. So if he can keep that kind of pace up, we will see another shift in position in the GTE class, and that's the battle for 4th in class at the moment that we're seeing.
Yeah, Griffin Gardner's got some decent pace. He's actually on slightly older tyres than Dreiling is, I believe, because Dreiling pitted only 2 laps ago roughly, whereas Gardner was a little bit earlier. So quite interesting to actually see this pace differential. I'm not sure if it's because of the damage that Dreiling is carrying or what the story is there, but it's that gap's coming down fairly quickly, and should the pace stay as it is for Gardner, that position will definitely be gained.
Well, looking at what's going on here, it's Still building up to what could be a very interesting finish in all three classes. Meanwhile, 90 seconds to second and third in GTE, so the gap is continuing to drop from there. Drilling with a 356.257, Burns with a 352.155. And Wolfgang Wildenauer, 3 minute 59 for his first lap out of the pits. Actually, I'll correct myself there, that's his out lap. So we'll see what kind of laps he can set, but looking at his previous stints, he was actually lapping quite nicely for the most part. He dipped into the 351s a few times, so the pace potential is definitely there. And he's a little bit faster than Dwayne Burns, I think, at the best of times. Burns does have a greater record of setting 351s in his last stint, though, so who knows at this stage. It is still all to play for here. Really, it's a battle for best of the rest in GTE, because Torque Freak Racing have been the absolute class of the field, at least in the part that I've been observing. Still enjoying that 3-lap lead over their co-competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. Torque Freak have been running a pretty flawless race, though. Although, that said, just as they got to the end of the Mulsanne at Mulsanne Corner, they actually did lock up a outside front and actually went straight ahead and into the gravel. So, a little bit of a mistake from George Gruber, and that's just showing that it's not all and done yet, and anything could possibly happen even with only an hour and 11 minutes to go.
Yes, indeed. It's certainly not over yet. So we're going to get a replay of that incident just then, Cam. As we go back live, and tell you what, the battle up the front in LMP1. Christian Challoner, last lap, 3 minute 20.818 versus 3:19.599 for Joshua Wolf. It has been said that Kinetic are trying to make Grizzly as nervous as possible, but it seems like Joshua Wolf has it all under control up the front.
Yeah, it looks like Grizzly has got some decent pace at the moment over that Kinetic 83 car, a little bit quicker, doing the Grizzly Motorsports car doing in the 319s, whereas the Kinetic car is in the 320s. So a little bit of pace difference, but we do know that Kinetic are possibly saving fuel to try and lengthen their stints a little bit, so they is stationary for as short as possible at the end of the race, and possibly even maybe skipping that end stop. So we'll see what happens. The gap is obviously around that 60-second mark, but we'll see what happens as the race progresses on, and whether that fuel saving is actually going to help them a huge amount.
Yes, indeed. It's certainly something interesting to consider. The Audi, well, we've been talking basically for all of the time that we've been broadcasting about the Audi's advantage in the pit stops, and it's certainly a possibility that Joshua Wolf could make it work. We'll still have to wait and see. We're only a short time away from 1 hour to go here at Le Mans. It's been a race that has seen plenty of highs, plenty of lows for quite a few teams, but I tell you what, one thing that we should touch on once again is actually quite an impressive statistic. There's only been 7 retirements in this race out of a field of 30 cars, which for a 24-hour race I think, you know, especially in sim racing, that is quite the achievement, and I think the field should be quite proud of themselves for that, continuing to plug away in the face of certain issues.
Yeah, absolutely. The minimal amount of retirements, I'm actually very surprised at, but I'm also not surprised at the same time because this race is actually invite only, and to actually race in it, you have to be invited, and you also have to own a season pass, which you can actually buy for it to compete in the major series. So all these drivers have actually paid money more or less to actually race in this event, and I think that's probably changed the attitude of how everybody's taking this race. Everybody knows it's a 24-hour race, and nobody really wants it to go to waste within the first hour or possibly half of the race. So everybody's just been cautious, taking their time, planning their moves, and being predictable about where they want to go, so that nobody really gets involved in any sort of major incidents and has their race ended too early. But obviously, unfortunately, there has been a few incidents early on that have ended some races, but that's usually normal for endurance sort of racing. You'll have obviously a few retirements here, there, but for the most part, everybody's actually done fairly well to keep it as clean as they have.
Yeah, certainly. I certainly think that, you know, races like this have the potential for carnage, especially with the multi-class aspect, and a lot of drivers on iRacing still being new to the LMP1 cars. It's been a real learning curve, I suppose, with these machines. So yeah, to have so much clean racing. Whoa, hang on a minute. As I say that, I just noticed an LMP1 actually almost spin out of Mulsanne. That was Jack Johnson for Mountain West Motorsports, but it looks like the four-wheel drive kicking in on that P1 saved him. Just going to grab a quick replay of that one, of course, thanks to Cut Price Racing. Great supporters of us here at V8s Online, but when we come back, Griffin Gardner in the Majors Ferrari is continuing to smash out those quick lap times versus the Elite West machine. They've actually got barely a chicane separating them on the back straight.
Yeah, you're actually correct there. That's actually some very impressive driving from Griffin there to close that gap down as quick as he has, but also do the consistent lap times that he has. He's been consistently in the 51s, and this is the first lap that he's done, in the last lap, sorry, that he's done that was outside of the low 51s. So he's doing some very consistent, very quick lap times at the moment, and he's closing that gap awfully quickly.
Yes, he is. So that's definitely only a matter of time. I mean, the Elite West racing car certainly looks to be a little bit more dinged up than the Majors Ferrari, so that's quite possibly the reason for the lack of pace from that car. Just looking back through the lap times for that car, they were setting some incredibly quick times. Looks to me like Tom Dreiling is one of the slower drivers in that car, so that car is capable of some good pace, but unfortunately it seems Dreiling's having a couple of issues trying to extract pace out of that.
Yeah, I think they had an incident early in the race at some stage, actually not too far, or much earlier than when we started the broadcast. They're not sure exactly what happened, but it looks like he's had an incident somewhere, and he's had to make 2 pit stops, possibly a pit lane penalty, possibly damage, I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, that's cost him a little bit of time, and it's unfortunately with his pace, it's not helped them a huge amount.
No, certainly not. He's just made a bit of a mistake coming into the Ford chicanes as Dreiling, so lap time that time around, a 3:56.791, still keeping a consistent pace, if not blindingly quick. But Griffin Gardner doesn't have much track space between himself and Dreiling. That could certainly be a position change.
Yes, if I had to give a rough guess, I'd probably say, well, only the next handful of laps, possibly even the stint that they're on.
Well, an interesting statistic is that we've actually gone over 400 laps now for the overall distance covered by our leaders. Joshua Wolf now on lap 401. So I suppose, considering how long there have been 24 hours of Le Mans done in sim racing, we've known that the distance record can certainly be broken by a huge amount, but still, it's an impressive statistic to crack the 400 here in the majors.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the actual record is something like 397 laps, I think.
Yeah.
As far as laps go. So we've actually gone quite over that, and bearing in mind that we haven't actually had any safety cars because of the fact that there's no real iRacing safety cars in road racing, so it's actually quite impressive to see these LMP1 cars get above 400 laps. And I think the interesting bit will also be to see how much difference as far as how many laps get completed in this race compared to the official Le Mans 24-hour that is going to be taking place in August.
Yeah, certainly. It would be interesting because I guess you got to consider that there are quite a lot of high-profile teams that compete in the official Le Mans 24 hours. I mean, that's not to say that the teams competing in majors are bad. It's just there is a little bit more of a pace advantage that I think teams that compete in the official Le Mans 24-hour have. So it will be interesting to see how the distance record goes for that one. Meanwhile, back to Griffin Gardner once again. 22 seconds now, the gap to the Elite Racing car. And at this rate, I think it's basically a given that the positions are going to change. Just having a look at Griffin Gardner's stint, looks to be about 9 laps into his stint, so he will be coming in the next couple of laps. Meanwhile, Elite West Racing, Tom Dreiling, he's still very much in the first half, I believe, of his stint. So these guys aren't completely on sync in terms of pit stops, but we'll still see them pitting within a few laps of each other, and we won't completely lose track of where they're at relative to each other.
Yeah, no, it should be fairly easy to follow the two drivers in the Majors Pro and Elite West Racing Porsche 911 RSR. So we'll see actually what happens. Griffin Gardner was actually about 6 seconds a lap quicker on that last lap to the car of Tom Dreiling, so shouldn't be too far away from seeing a move completed.
Very aggressive over the curbs there was Griffin Gardner. 18.9 seconds now, the gap. So, yeah, Griffin doing a sterling job there. Escaping iRacing slowdowns as well, because they can be a bit brutal when they come in, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sometimes quite a bit of a pain when you have a slowdown pop up on your screen, but whether it be a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, however long, it really does become a bit of a pain and can actually ruin a race depending on where you are if it's that big of a gap. But we now are under 1 hour remaining. We've got 59 minutes and just under 30 seconds left in this race, so it'll be interesting to see what happens and develops in the next hour.
Yes, indeed. Very short amount of time to go here at Le Mans. 23 out of 24 complete, and once again, still got some battles to decide. That Major's Ferrari putting down those very quick lap times. A 3-minute 50.645 for Griffin Gardner, which at this stage of the race is actually quite good. His fastest lap was set on lap 195, a 3-minute 48.479. So the gap between those times, I guess it's not that much, around a 13-kilometer circuit.
Yeah, would have to agree with you there. And actually, Griffin Gardner is actually the quickest car on track in the GTE field at the moment. So that's interesting.
Yes, indeed. Just going to check back in with the LMP1 leaders. 71-second gap between those guys. Looks like the Workiva Kinetic racing car might have actually had a bit of an incident on the last lap, because I'm noticing on the timing that the gap last time by was 108.5, so perhaps a little problem for the number 83 car. I mean, we have said it before, Christian Challoner has been in that car for a very long time.
Yeah, he's been absolutely grinding away at that gap to try and close it down. Unfortunately, it hasn't come down too quickly. It did earlier on, but once there was a driver swap in the Grizzly car, it's now remained a bit static, and it's actually starting to open back up a little bit. So it's going to be a hard task for Challoner to try and close that gap back up, but still plenty of racing to go. And with that final pit stop, it's anyone's guess as to where they're going to pop out in terms of the gap.
Yes, indeed. I mean, can they make up 1 minute and 11 seconds in an hour? Especially considering Josh Wolf. I honestly don't think it can be done.
Yeah, it's probably quite a bit of a hard task trying to close down 1 minute around LeMans here, especially in a car that's quite even with your competitor, and your lap times aren't actually quicker at this stage. So we'll see what happens. Again, it's an endurance race, it's LeMans. Anything can possibly and probably will actually happen. We've definitely seen stranger things happen, so only time will tell.
Yep, certainly. Well, there's not much time left. 52 minutes remaining in the 24 hours of Le Mans here, the Majors Series. 13 seconds between Dreiling and Gardner now. Remember, if you're interested in racing in this series, I guess registrations are still open for the remainder of the season. It's an incredible series, bringing together the best from racing all around the world. And of course, these drivers are all competing for the Mario Andretti Trophy, of course, symbolizing Andretti's skill in so many different types of racing. And that, Cam, is really what the Majors Series is all about, just showing how diverse motor racing is.
Yeah, absolutely. This series is something that you don't actually find all too often in sim racing. It's literally every kind of racing you can think of thrown into a year of racing. You've got Formula One, you've got vintage cars, you've got GT3s, you've got dirt sprint cars, you've got IndyCar, you've got endurance racing like Le Mans, you've got V8 supercars, you've got literally any sort of category you can think of. You're pretty much driving it, and it's being a driver in the series myself, it's something I'm actually enjoying. It's very, very interesting going from something like an IndyCar at Indianapolis, doing the Indy 500, for example, to the next race, which is in the Lotus 79 at Silverstone, which, if you thought about it, is two totally different cars. Like, you can't compare the two, going left for 200 odd laps and then going left and right for an entire Grand Prix length. So it's a very, very interesting series, and if you are interested, I definitely recommend jumping in and having a go at it.
Yep. Pit stop. sorry, Corey, as you just jumped in. Pit stop in the Torque Freak Racing Arnage car. Adam Shipstone jumping in there. Go on, Corey. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no problem. Like I was about to say, it does pay homage to the series name, the Major Series. It's basically all of the major motorsport events that happen in one year put into sim racing and put into a series. So, I do believe the Classic Lotus Grand Prix at Silverstone will be a very fun one indeed. 60 laps around Silverstone, I do believe the Grand Prix layout. So, and the Lotus 79 is going to be a ball of fun.
Certainly is. Well, Adam Shipstone down off the jacks, and he is going to begin what will be the final stint of the race in the LMP2 lead machine. Now, the last time Shipstone was in was lap 275, so he's had a bit of a break, and now he's ready to bring that car home, guys. Meanwhile, back in the GTE class, that battle for 4th place still raging on. 9 seconds between the Elite West and Majors cars. And looks like Dreiling is playing the part of traffic for our 2nd place running machine, Wolfgang Wildenauer, in the Road Bastards 991 machine. And that's going to be done pure and simple. Ooh. Very hard under brakes there for both of those cars. And just like that, the gap is down to 7 seconds. So Griffin Gardner, he can see that extra position in sight. He can see what he needs to do to grab it. It's just a case of keeping that car on track, you know. They've managed to do it for this long. Surely they can do it for a bit longer. I mean, Gardner is playing havoc with those curbs right now. If he could just rein it in a little bit, he'll be able to get by in no time.
Yeah, absolutely. He's doing a fantastic job, and he has been for the whole entire stint that he's been in the car for. So there will be absolutely no time that he will be able to get by. And I actually just do want to point out that I did actually see the Team Madcar actually have a moment out of the first chicane down the Mulsanne and actually hit the walls. So the chance of them actually gaining any more time on the Torque Free car and actually taking the race lead is actually probably no more, as they're going to possibly have to pit for damage.
Well, that would certainly put paid to their race, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
We're going to try and grab a replay of that incident, just gain a little bit more context on what's going on. Meanwhile, looks like the gap between the LMP1 leaders is actually extended by a couple of seconds. It's now out to 82 seconds and 72 rather. Apologies for that. So both of them now have 2 laps over the Bon Michel Motorsports car running in 3rd place. So I don't know, looking at those lap times, I mean, Joshua Wolf, that's interesting. He has just come out of the pits, so he's got actually a couple of lap times that have been invalidated. I'm not quite sure of the reason. Wondering if he may have gotten a black flag. That's interesting.
What car is this, sorry?
This'll so car number 48. Let's I'm just going to rewind quickly on my end and see what's going on there.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's either that or internet issues that may be invalidating his lap times, because we know that that can happen.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. We'll see if he comes down pit road this time, as it's usually 3 laps maximum, and he actually, no, he doesn't come down pit lane, so possibly either slowdowns or internet issues by the looks of it for Joshua Wolf.
Well, internet issues. He's now set a lap.
Meanwhile, Dryling and Gardner finally in the same shot. So, oh, whoa, oh, that was a very late dive for the pits from Tom Dryling.
Yeah, bit of a wild moment there. I actually thought he lost the car to brakes there. Is that what it looked like? But it appeared to be that he just had a bit of a sudden brain moment and thought, oh, I better actually pit now, or I might run out of fuel.
Either that or was it a mind game? Or, you know, sort of trying to fake it like he wasn't going to pit and then does, so...
Yeah, maybe. Although, kind
Really
of have to be careful
strange.
about that because
Yeah.
you can be given a black flag for unsafe pit entry.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I'm not quite sure what the go was there, but looks to me like... Oh, hold up a minute. What happened to Tom Dryling? He's disappeared. He's... Oh. He might have just pulled out of the car. Jumped out. Oh no, he's back. So,
Bubble.
couple of net issues, I think, for the Elite West Racing guys.
Yeah, he's having internet issues. His ping in session is really high. Oh, he's back. But...
Oh,
very
no, I
weird.
can see a disconnection happening whilst received throughput.
Yeah. I think all we can say now to Elite West Racing is...
Back. So, looks like it's recovered.
Well, that certainly wouldn't have been a good thing to have happen, especially at this late stage in the race. If you have internet issues and you've been running, you know, top 4, top 5 in an endurance race for that long, only to have it cut off by internet issues, it's not a nice way to go in any length race, is it?
No, it's not.
So Griffin Gardner, I believe, will have well and truly gotten 4th place in class and is going to stay there for the foreseeable future. He'll probably be coming in very soon. Should be in this lap, we're hearing. Also in this lap should be Georg Gruber. And the Talk Freak Racing Radeon leading GTE machine. And God, I'm just gonna completely go off on a tangent for a second. I love the Talk Freak Racing livery. I'm just saying, I really like that color combination.
It actually looks quite nice, actually. It's actually a reasonably well combination of colours.
You know, I don't know, I've always had a thing for blue and orange. Not quite sure why. The first sim car I ever had painted for me was blue and orange, and I factored blue and orange into quite a few of my visual representations over the years. So I don't know, maybe it's just a nostalgia thing, but it's a nice livery, Talk Freak. Should be proud of yourselves with that. Meanwhile, lead car in the pits. And as I predicted before, Joshua Wolf should be staying in to the very end. So this is their last pit stop. Now, I can't help but think...
No tyres.
Oh yeah, no tyres as well. That is a good point that you make there. But Challoner in the Kinetic racing car, I would expect him to come in as well. Will he? Won't he? No, he won't. Not this time. Probably got 2 more laps in that car, we're hearing, so we'll be keeping our eye on them. But I feel like this has been a bit of a fuel-saving drive from Challoner in these last couple of stints, because his pace has dropped off slightly from what we saw him doing earlier on, putting through those absolutely stonking lap times. So probably, oh dear, I'm just hearing that there is a problem for the number 450. That's the Elite West racing car. Ryan Worley, who started the race in that car, has just gotten on the voice chat, and he's asking about how to deal with a glitch where you can't get into your car. So that is the reason why Dreiling had to get out and back into the car. Worley couldn't get in. So that is a very significant problem for the number 450. And they're back in the pits as well. Oh, Tom Dreiling, he's just stopped in the pits and just gone again. So, oh my goodness, Elite West very much in a bad position here coming into the end. Not only have they lost 4th place in class to the Majors Ferrari, but now they can't get their finishing driver into the car, guys.
I'm just as confused about this glitch as I think all of us are, actually.
Yeah, I'm noticing a couple of drivers are really, on voice chat. They're scratching their heads proverbially. This isn't something that you see very often. So, unless they can find another driver to try and get that car to the end, it looks like Tom Dreiling might be stuck in that thing until the end of the race.
That's just... they were 4th and now they're 5th and could be with not finishing. So this is... Wow, this is really heartbreaking for Elite West.
Yeah, it certainly is. Just, God, and how many laps has Worley done? Because I don't know if they will have satisfied the minimum driver requirements. Oh, I think they might be safe in terms of that, but God, just technical issues, man. Meanwhile, V-Apex and Turn 1 Heroes in LMP1, these two teams, they've been locked together for quite some time, and they are still locked together. 15-second gap between them. Now, 3-minute 20.3 from Stefan Schlacker. 3:21.183 from Russell Clayson, who has taken over the V-Apex racing car from Eric Smith. Now, I don't know how representative that lap time is of his general pace. Seems to have been setting low 21s so far, has Klassen. Lap previous, they actually set identical lap times, the number 3 and the number 6, so they're very closely matched right now. Interestingly enough, Mark Rayner actually now in the pits. So he's brought the number 11 Full Momentum racing car in for their final scheduled stop. And Full Momentum, they've run quite well, 4th place in class for the last couple of hours, so I should expect them to stay in that position until the end. Don't know how much competition they would receive from the Rutgers Kev show number 629 though. Oh, as I say that, guys, Kevin O'Keefe making a little bit of a mistake in the last chicane. They're a full lap behind, I'm just hearing, so there is no battle there to be had.
Yeah, and you've also got the Kinetic Racing 85 car just ahead of that Full Momentum racing car. 2 laps ahead, I believe, to Mark Rayner. So not really too much of a competition for Rayner at this stage, and it'll just be about getting it to the end and securing a 4th place finish.
Meanwhile, Dreiling back in the pits once again. Hopefully they found a solution to their current dilemma. So this will be the third time that Dreiling has gone to the pits in as many laps. So we'll see what he can do here. He's out. Question is, there we go. Ryan Worley back in. So there we go. They've managed to fix their little glitch, and now Ryan Worley will bring that car into the end. Fun fact, actually, about Ryan Worley. I remember getting in contact with him a while back for a disabled sim racers race. He actually, to my knowledge, the last time I looked him up, he races with a controller because he has a limb disability, which means he cannot use a wheel. He has to get around in a wheelchair. So it's awesome to see him compete at the level he does with that kind of physical limitation.
Yeah, he actually does drive quite well for that sort of disability. I mean, there's actually quite a few guys out there that, although they are disabled, they actually can drive quite well. So it's actually awesome to also see them competing on the level that they are. So big props to Ryan Worley on managing to do the job he does.
Yes, indeed. Well, he's back out. I believe he did set that car's fastest lap on lap 109, a 3-minute 50.406. Meanwhile, the position number 2 LMP1 car is in the pits. So
Much
Christian Challoner.
later.
Yes, much later than the Grizzly Motorsports Audi. So this will be a shorter fill. Looks like no driver swap, which makes sense. Also, no tires either, so looks like they might just be trying to save as much time as they possibly can. Try and get as much time back as they can over the Grizzly Motorsports Audi, but as it stands, the Grizzly Motorsports Audi has not lost their lead. Question is whether or not it will stay that way towards the end, whether or not Grizzly may have to pit again. I don't think they will, though.
Yeah, I can't see Wolf having to come back in for a splash and dash with how his last stop went. So they're both on either double or triple stinted tyres. I presume double stinted because you wouldn't go and do a triple stint to the end, but they're both on relatively old tyres, and the Kinetic car of Challoner had a slightly quicker stop, so this will be very interesting to actually see what happens in these last 36 minutes and whether Challoner's actually saved enough tyre to use to the end here.
Yeah, that is the question. It's a bit of a gamble that Kinetic have decided to employ, but who knows? So meanwhile, doesn't seem like much is going on at the moment. One thing that is going on here, a little bit of a cluster going on here of cars. That's going to be slightly awkward for all involved. Joseph Cardamone trying to stay on the same lap as Team Mad, and he's doing an alright job of it so far, but he's got some LMP1s to contend with. Had to contend with the GTE class leader as well. It's always a bit of an awkward position, Cam, when you're in an LMP2 car. Of course, being the middle class of car in events like this, not only do you have to be careful not to run over GTEs that you're passing, you've also got to keep an eye on your mirrors with the passing LMP1s. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very difficult job being in the middle class. It's probably the toughest class to be racing in because of the fact that you've got not only lap traffic to contend with but also traffic lapping you. So it's very much a class that you have to be on your game about and make sure that you're constantly watching your mirrors and planning your moves for lap traffic and that sort of stuff. So Yeah, it's very much almost a 200-mile-an-hour game. Well, 200-kilometer-an-hour game, not quite going 200 miles, but yeah, a very, very quick game of chess, more or less.
Yes, indeed. And we're hearing from the broadcast chat from John King, 100% Grizzly need to stop again. So I am honestly, I don't know what to think. I mean, I'm sure that that Grizzly could save that amount of fuel, but Josh Wolf does look to be driving very hard in that number 48 car up the front. So, there's there's about 11 laps to go, and they've done 3 laps in this stint. So yeah, John's right.
They've got to outdo. Sorry about that, Reece. So they've got to outdo or save 3 laps of fuel, but they've got a minute 23 advantage. So
that's still quite a bit of fuel to save, though, because if you think about it, you'll have to run in quite a rich fuel mixture. So yeah, I don't think any kind of fuel saving will help, and it will have to be a huge amount that will cost you a lot of time. So I'm pretty sure these guys at Grizzly Motorsport will be having their calculators out, trying to work out whether fuel saving or a pit stop is going to be worth it. So
well, it's going to be a pit stop. I'm fairly certain it's going to be a pit stop. I think.
Will be. Yeah, it will be a pit stop, and I'm going to say this right now, boys, but who's ready for a 10-lap sprint for the win at the end?
Oh, yes. That is certainly what we've got going here. And this is exactly what I think we were all hoping for. A proper battle to the end for the lead of this race, because got to remember that a pit stop or a full traversal of pit lane takes about a minute or something to that effect. So it is going to bring the gap right down. And looks to be that this is the only battle sort of left on track. Everything else has settled down quite a bit. So we've just gone under half an hour to go here. And the battle for the lead in LMP1 between Grizzly Motorsports and Workiva Kinetic Racing well and truly on here today. It'll be 10 laps to go next time by, so Joshua Wolf is going to have to pull out all the stops here. Try and maintain that lead. If he can, if they can get the victory by even as little as a second, then a win is a win. But I feel like Kinetic have been building up to something here with their driving over the last few stints.
Yeah, they've been. I think they've been mostly conservative and pushing, and then more conservative. But if it does get to the point where Grizzly do have to pit, and does get to the point where they can't get that minute 30 advantage to be basically not worth it, then they've worked their way up to something from what could have been 10 hours ago. They've planned so long ago for the end of this race. That's amazing by the Kinetic team.
Definitely is, and it goes back to what we were talking about before, Corey, the whole preparation aspect of racing in these long events. It doesn't start at the drop of the green flag. It doesn't even start at the start of qualifying. It starts weeks before the race when you're thinking about ways you can tackle an event like this. And Kinetic, they've definitely shown themselves to be a very capable squad over this season in the Major Series. And they're proving it once again here.
Yeah, absolutely. Kinetic are a team that I think a lot of people are starting to look at and actually probably start to think they're a threat. I know a lot of the drivers that are at Kinetic have are from Blackadder Motorsports that unfortunately folded not too long ago. So it's sort of a reform of Blackadder Motorsports, but it's also its own new team. So it's been a very interesting journey, seeing this sort of talent they've got behind the team and how good they actually are at preparing for races and that sort of stuff in the major series. And I can tell you for a fact that they will have definitely had all sorts of strategies going on, whether it be pit lane time and how much fuel you can save over a stint and that sort of stuff. So they'll be well and truly prepared, and there's no doubt that they're going to try their absolute best to try and get control of this race, even if it's in the last lap.
Yes, indeed. So we'll just go through a little bit of an update on who's doing what in every single class right now. So the battle that we've just been talking about, Grizzly versus Workeever Kinetic Racing, that's position 1 and 2 in LMP1, and third is Bombshell Motorsports Incorporated with Marcus Niskanen at the wheel of that car. In LMP2, Torque Freak Racing Arnage continues to lead. Adam Shipstone, the wheel of that machine. They're just cruising to the finish here because they have quite the gap to Team Mad in second place with the Kinetic Racing LMP2 in third. And the top 3 in GTE, the number 81 Torque Freak Racing Radeon car. Then Road Bastards 991, 3 laps below them, and Avatar Auto Racing with Griffin Gardner at the wheel in third. So that is your field. At least the top 3 in every class for this race with less than half an hour to go. And actually, just gone back and checked, Team Mad had a spin at Arnage, so it's still not entirely in cruise mode for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, it's still plenty of racing to go. You can't let up just yet. It's not quite. You still got to complete the rest of the race and make it to the end. They've already had that moment where they've hit the wall coming out of the first chicane down the Mulsanne, and they've also had that spin, so possibly getting slightly too excited that they're this close to the end.
Indeed. 26 minutes left. And eyes will be on Joshua Wolf in the number 48 car. As to when he will pit next. I mean, let's think about this for a second, guys. When you're in the position of someone like Josh Wolf and you have to pit, do you do it as early as you can, or do you let the tank run dry?
Very hard question to answer, because with the pace as it is, Challenger's actually matching Wolf's pace, so you kind of almost have to run it out dry just so it's as short as possible stop, but regardless it's going to be a short stop, so it's very, very tough decision. I don't know what the Grizzly guys are going to do at this stage. It looks like they're going to be running it dry, but yeah, it's a very, very tough situation to be in, almost a rock between a rock and a hard place. So we'll see what happens, whether this gap does increase or decrease. It's nearly to a minute and a half, so they're almost in the clear, but we'll see what happens and whether they can actually get close enough to that 1 minute 30 mark.
Yes, indeed. Oh boy. Starting to rub my hands together, guys, at the prospect of a battle for the finish.
Yep, rub your hands together and lick your lips, because this might be a very tasty battle if it does happen.
Well, it looks to me like the battle between Turn 1 Heroes and V-Apex Racing Atlantic still not quite over. Turn 1 Heroes has just exited the pits, exiting the Dunlop chicane, and V-Apex Racing just came off the jacks, and they are now back out onto the circuit as well. So I get the feeling that the battle between those two teams might be done and dusted if things stay the way they are now. 20 seconds between them.
Yeah, I don't think that battle for fourth position in LMP1 class is going to change all that much, as the Turn 1 Heroes car is looking like it's got some decent pace over the V Apex race at the Atlantic car, so should expect Turn 1 Heroes to have a nice and safe fourth place, while V Apex will have to settle for fifth. But again, anything can happen, and we'll have to wait and see.
Yes, indeed. I mean, we talk about fatigue setting in these 24-hour races. Even at the very end, you can have fatigue-related mistakes happen. I mean, we saw in the case of the Team Madcar spinning at Arnage, so that would undoubtedly have been brought on by some kind of lapse in concentration. You know, these drivers driving for so long and having their minds on so many things at once, it's very easy to lose track of what you're doing and not be 100% on it as you need to be in a situation like this. We call it endurance racing, but it's changed quite a... Whoa, goodness me, V Apex, there we go. They're in the wall. That was an incident with a GTE right there, and that is certainly not something that will make Russell Klassen very happy.
No, that's very unfortunate that that's happened. He's actually done it on his own. There was no contact between himself and the GTE car. I think he was trying to go around the outside,
Yeah.
but unfortunately just pitched it right a little bit too much.
Oh, nah, I think I can see what happened. I think he was expecting the GTE to track out and give him the inside on exit. But of course that didn't happen, so he had to take a bit of avoiding action, and unfortunately he was met with the wall.
Yeah, so that's really unfortunate. Should be able to keep on going, but unfortunately that battle for fourth place is now gone.
He's down on straight line speed massively. Like, looks like he's not even giving it full throttle. I think that car's got some pretty massive damage.
Well, the front is really bent up, so he'd have hybrid system problems, he'd have no top speed at all, so you might as well park it up and call it a day. You can't really finish that car off if you want to.
Don't know about that because the sixth is actually only about 2 laps behind, so they've kind of got to push on and finish the final 21 minutes.
Yeah, they have to. I mean, you can't quit this late in the race. It's not like cars and iRacing are completely unrepairable. But we'll see what happens anyway. But certainly put a dent in V Apex Racing's pursuit of a fourth place finish here at Le Mans. So
A big dent at that
see what
race.
I can do. Yeah, certainly. Oh, goodness me. It looks like he can't even turn that car to the left. You see how wide he's been going in the Porsche curbs.
And he's bringing it in.
Yes, indeed. And actually, going into cockpit camera, I can see he's doesn't seem to have much trouble keeping that car in a straight line, but it's certainly not an ideal situation to be in. So he's going to bring that car in, get it repaired, hopefully, and get back out. Hopefully those repairs aren't too long because they'll lose a position to Grizzly Evolution if that is indeed the case.
Well, they hopefully won't have a lot of required repairs, because if so, then they have to call it quits, basically.
Yeah, if they've got more than 20 minutes of repairs left, then it's unfortunately game over for them, and they'll have to unfortunately settle for what will probably be 6th, if not 7th.
Well, Klassen is staying in the car, so I guess he must be optimistic of that damage getting repaired soon, and I can see the car is just gradually reforming, so it doesn't look like this is too heavy of a hit. Physical damage almost repaired on that number 6 already, so looks like it might have just been pure physical damage.
You might have just got away with that one and it only be optional repairs, possibly only a few minutes or possibly even a minute or less of required. So he's been quite lucky to get away with that one if it's not too long.
So, eyes on number 48 once again. He's negotiating the Porsche curves, just exiting is Josh Wolf. A little bit of oversteer on the exit. Let's see if he jumps into the pits this time around.
No.
Nope, he's going to avoid them once again. So he's definitely leaving this as late as he possibly can. With under 15 minutes left in the race. Only 6 laps worth of driving to go for these guys, so...
So if he wants to go to as late as he can, yeah, he's got only 3 laps basically to go on the stint, which means that it'll be a 3-lap sprint to the end for that car.
Yeah, 3 laps around Le Mans, piece of cake, I suppose, unless you've got the wrong kind of traffic to deal with. Meanwhile, number 6, V-Apex Racing, managed to get that damage fixed and they are back out, so they have not lost any further positions. Good to see.
Yeah, they've actually been very lucky there.
So there we go. Torque Freak Racing Arnage, lead LMP2, jumping into the pits again. So obviously I was wrong about that previous pit stop of theirs being their final one. So it's going to be a short blast to the finish for these guys, and a very short stop as well. So they must have short-filled a little bit. Little splash and dash to get to the end. They can afford to do that with the advantage that they are enjoying.
They could have actually taken tyres if they wanted and tried to set the quickest lap possible, but at the end of the day, they're just puttering along and bringing the car home, which is fair enough.
Yeah, indeed. When you're in a position like Torque Freak, the worst thing to do is to try and go all out and try and set epic lap times, because at the end of the day, when you're enjoying as much of an advantage as they are, you want to minimize the risk that you put yourself in. So play it safe, middle of the road, don't do anything stupid, and that's exactly what they're doing there. So making his way past the Elite West car, Joshua Wolf. I feel like unless Kinetic Racing have some kind of incredible ace up their sleeve in terms of pace, it's going to be a close finish, but I would predict that the number 48 is in absolutely prime position to cross the line first at the very end, avoiding the pits once again. So he is going as long as he possibly can. So you said 3 laps last time around, Cam. Now it'll be 2 laps. Or did Corey say that?
That was me, sir. Yes, that was me.
Yes, okay. So there we go. Just done 9 laps on this stint, so 2 full laps of Le Mans left to traverse before he will have to come in and get that last bit of fuel. Meanwhile, in the pits, Bombshell, that's Niskanen. Number 99 car, they've done very well to be running in 3rd after all this time. They started in 6th place in class. So they've managed to weather all of the trials and tribulations that everyone else has suffered, and they've gained some very nice ground out of that, and it should definitely work out well in terms of their championship points.
Yeah, absolutely. It's endurance racing in the end. To finish first, you must finish, and that is exactly what these guys at Bombshell Motorsports have done. They've managed to just keep on going, keep it out of trouble, and they've now ended up in a podium position. So they've done an absolute awesome job to get into third from sixth place starting position. So well done.
Well, now it's up to Niskanen to do the same as many drivers in this field. Just run it to the end. Don't make any mistakes. There's no fight. There's no battle to be involved in. All you got to do is just keep it on the straight and narrow. And it'll be done.
Don't mean to alarm anyone, but Challenger's back into the 17s.
Oh, okay. So this is exactly what I think we want to happen from a spectator's perspective. Turning it back on is Christian Challoner.
Is it those mind games starting to come back into effect now?
They must have been fuel saving. They must have. Now they've driven to a number, and now they're just pulling out all the stops for the final 9 minutes of the race.
Yep. All they need to do, all that 83 needs to do is now do fast laps, clean, consistent fast laps to drop the gap that the 848 will leave at the end of his stop.
Speaking of the 48, he's just coming up to the Porsche curves now. And he could choose to pit at the end of this lap or the next one. We're not sure which he will choose. Oh, that was not an optimal run. Yeah, he had to actually get out of the throttle there. Front end washing out. Don't want to push too hard, Wolf. That's not optimal. So let's see. Pit entry. Here we go.
Yes. No.
No. I think you called it a bit too early there, Corey. We didn't even have time to place any bets. We're actually being informed that the way the leaders are going in terms of pace, there'll be an extra lap at the end of the race. So,
sorry about that race, but a little bit of a moment on braking for the 48.
Yeah, certainly. That's not optimal at all. But one extra lap, what could that mean?
I think...
Well, the 48 might be okay, but I don't know about the 83. Have they driven thinking that there won't be that extra lap at the end?
Because if they haven't, that means they've got to go back to a fuel saving mode, which means that gap will be extended once again.
Well, I guess we'll find out when the checkered flag drops. As we were alluding to earlier, Corey, the fat lady is still dead silent. Hasn't even opened her mouth yet.
No, not even got herself prepared for the moment yet, so we still have around about 10 or so minutes with some change left.
Second and third in LMP2, we don't know how this is going to go because Team Mad versus the number 85 Kinetic Racing entry, they're on the same lap technically, but as you can see, the number 10 Team Mad car is almost up on the number 85 to lap them. So Joseph Cardamone will have a bit of a dilemma on his hands. There isn't that much time left in the race, but there's still a fair chance that they could lose that lap. If they want to stay on that lap, he does have to bring up the pace just a little bit. However, I do get the feeling... Sorry, Cam, go on.
I was just going to say, it does look like Cardamone's got a little bit extra pace over the Team Mad car, so should be able to hold on to that lap and not lose it. And if he does, it should be very, very close to the end with the way it's going.
Well, we'll check back in on that very shortly, but number 48, he would have to pit this time around. If he doesn't pit, I'm going to be extremely surprised. Joshua Wolf, out of the Porsche curves, through Maison Blanche.
Pit, I say yeah.
And you are right. There we go. So Wolf in, and this is going to be the splash and dash to end all splash and dashes.
And now eyes are now fixed on the 48 and the 83, because now the 83 has to try and close the gap to enough so that they can push as hard as they can to the end of the race.
Yes, indeed. So we'll be keeping our eyes on two cars at once here. Challenger just making it into Indianapolis, so Wolf still has yet to jump into the pits.
And he's in the box now. He's stopped. Here we go.
Just counting away the seconds in my head.
And he's gone.
10.2 seconds stop there for Joshua Wolf. And he has come out still in the lead, so I get the feeling that this, yeah, it's done, basically. The cars just need to circulate and they'll be completely done for the day. Possibly 4 laps to go. We'll have to wait and see. Depending on the pace that Wolf has, it could be either 3 laps to go or 4 laps to go. We won't find out for sure until they actually cross the line. First to second, 41 seconds. So it looks to me like, well, they would need a miracle to try and bring that gap up, guys.
Chance of that gap diminishing in only 6 minutes is not very likely, so it'll have to be a massive mistake from the Grizzly Motorsports car, which from what we've seen won't be happening anytime soon, so we'll have to wait and see. But at this rate, Grizzly Motorsports have got this well and truly in the bag.
Well, I think what we can say now, guys, is a congratulations to Talk 3 Racing Radeon, because they've, what we could say now, they've wiped the field with GTE and have now won.
When they cross the line, I think they will be confirmed as the winner on this lap, because after that point, they will have been completely unassailable. They could technically just pull over after they cross the line on this lap and still be declared the winners of GTE.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, an excellent performance, to be sure, from the Talk Freak Racing guys. They've consistently been the best GTE car out of them all. All of their drivers putting in great performances, and I was noticing before that David Barraclough in the broadcast chat mentioning that he had been in the car for 9 stints total throughout the race, which mammoth effort if you ask me.
Yes, indeed. It's quite a long time to have driven a virtual race car for.
So when Wolf crosses the line, it will be 2 laps to go. And that will be the case right now. So there we go. I'll tell you what, Grizzly Motorsports, starting from second place, I'd say that both themselves and the Kinetic Racing team have been the class of the field in the prototype class, at least.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 2-lap gap between Grizzly and Kinetic 83. It's just they've both just set the pace of the whole P1 field, and they've taken it and ran with it. So, but Grizzly Motorsport at the moment starting basically beside Kinetic on the first go, only in second place. Will now, could, because we still have 1 and a bit laps to go, win this race.
Yeah, and Josh Wolf is continuing to smash out those consistent and quick lap times. From the moment he's gotten the car, he's been doing exactly that. Certainly the driver in that car with the quickest pace all up. I have to say, fantastic job from those guys. Meanwhile, Workiva Kinetic, just fantastic drive from those guys as well. But I tell you what, the winners of LMP2 and GTE, Talk Freak Racing, I don't know what more you can say about them other than absolutely brilliant job. These guys, at the end of next lap, in the LMP2 class, will also be declared the winners once they cross the line next.
And I've got to say this now, both the Talk Freak Racing cars in their respective classes did not start on pole.
Yeah, they certainly didn't.
The LMP2 car started 4th in the class, and the GTE Porsche started 2nd, so it's all about consistency.
It certainly is.
All
Yeah.
about.
100%. And Talk Freak Racing, they're a team that have been around for quite some time in international organized sim racing, and they've always been a team to look out for. These guys once again proving their worth in the Majors series. And it just goes to show, doesn't it, that it doesn't matter where you start in an endurance race, as we get the white flag now for Grizzly Motorsports number 48. It doesn't matter where you start. You always have a chance to cross the line in first if you play your cards right. And the cards have been played fantastically.
Yep, your chances winning is never rubbed out from the start of the race. It's always you create it by what you do, and even if you qualify dead last, you can still pave the way if you put, as you said, Reece, play the right cards, play a strategy right, and it's basically worked for Grizzly, and also, well, all of the winners here today it's all worked for them.
Yeah, certainly has, and you can't count out the other podium finishers as well. Workiva Kinetic Racing and Bombshell Motorsports in LMP1, Team Mad, and of course Kinetic Racing once again in LMP2, Roadbusters and Avatar Auto Racing in GTE. In order to get to the finish at all in a 24-hour race, it requires a mammoth effort, lots of coordination between a bunch of people across the world. And these people have all come together today to do just that. A 30-car field, and 23 will take the finish. That's an incredibly good statistic, as the clock hits 0, finally. And Joshua Wolf is currently making his way down the Mulsanne Straight, passing by the second place GTE. Little bit of oversteer coming into the Mulsanne corner for good measure. But a gap of 40 seconds to the car behind you. There's no need to push too hard. Flashing his lights behind Joshua Wolf is Griffin Gardner in the Majors Ferrari. He will end up coming home in 4th place, bringing that car home. The number 404. So guys, the final part of the lap is about to start here for Joshua Wolf. This one acceleration zone from Arnage, and then it's the fast, scintillating Porsche curves, and then the 2 chicanes to finish off the lap, and it will be the finish for Grizzly Motorsports. Number 48 starting 2nd, and now having traded places with the Kinetic number 83, they will come home with the win, and I'm sure it will be a fantastic relief for these guys and a huge achievement too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% sure a very big smile on his face at the moment as he heads out of the Porsche curves and down towards the Ford chicane for the final time today.
So here we go then. Coming to the finish, number 48. We've said about them everything that can possibly be said. But one more thing to be said now. They cross the line to take victory in the Majors Le Mans 24-hour. Flashing his lights in celebration, Joshua Wolf for Grizzly Motorsports taking that car home. So Grizzly in the number 48. That's Joshua Wolf, Cordell Collin, Travis Henderson, Trevor Vavrovsky, and Dawson Brock. Incredible job from those guys to bring it home. Griffin Gardner will confirm himself 4th in the Majors Ferrari. Markus Niskanen coming across the line to take the Bombshell Motorsports Porsche into 3rd place, and Christian Challoner picks up 2nd, bringing the Workiva Kinetic Racing Porsche home. Still have yet to take the finish is the Torque Freak Racing cars, but they are already confirmed the winners. They could have pulled over, but that's not a very sportsmanlike gesture, and if there's anything that a lot of sim racing teams are, it's people who value sportsmanship quite a bit. So Georg Gruber will be the first of the Torque Freak Racing guys to take victory in their class. GTE taken by the number 81. Big slide on 2 wheels out of the final corner. What a way to finish. And there we go. Torque Freak Racing Radion taking the win in GTE. A fantastic job from those guys. Still yet to take the flag is the Torque Freak Racing Arnage machine, number 82. They're going to come home in 8th overall with 5 LMP1 cars retiring from this event, which, you know, a fantastic achievement certainly for the number 82. Yeah, the HPD, it's an old car. First came onto iRacing in, I believe, 2010 or 2011. So it is one of the veteran cars on the service, but the amount of people driving it now still shows that there is some love for it. And Torque Freak Racing definitely believe it is worth it. So here we go then. Car number 82 is going to bring home the win in LMP2. 2 class wins for Torque Freak Racing. I don't think you could possibly come away with a better result.
Yeah, absolutely. To take away 2 of the 3 classes is pretty special, and they'll be absolutely stoked with that, that's for sure.
Wow.
Well, I think most of the drivers have gone over the start-finish line. There's still a couple of guys. 4th place in P1 are coming to the last chicane as we speak.
Yep, and they're followed closely.
Ooh.
Whoa. Ouch. Okay, so, oh boy, number 85, Joseph Cardamone. That's certainly not the way you want to take the last lap. But, oh, you got to slow down as well, but he will cross the line, and that will be a 3rd place finish for them. But V-Apex Racing, yeah, sorry, go on, Corey.
Yeah, V-Apex, I think the last hour is a story of what could have been.
Oh, yeah.
you know, hitting the wall, trying to miss a GTE, and then losing what could have been losing their 4th place, but they did finish top 5, so that's something for them.
Yep, certainly. So there we go. Before we go on to our driver interviews, we'll just go through the official classified results here. The 24 Hours of Le Mans in the Majors Series. This is the results as they stand. Number 48, Grizzly Motorsports, takes the win in LMP1, with Workiva Kinetic Racing, number 83, in second. Bombshell Motorsports Incorporated takes the 99 car to third. Turn 1 Heroes in fourth, 9 laps down on the lead, with Apex Racing Atlantic taking home fifth. Grizzly Evolution in sixth place, with Dog Bear Racing in seventh. And your retirees, not retirees, finishing at 37 laps down the leaders was the 51 Mountain West Motorsports car, with Workiva Kinetic Racing 84, Run Shotgun Motorsports, Alliance Racing, and Unorthodox Motorsports, your retirees in the LMP1 class.
LMP2, Torque Freak Racing Arnage take home the win by a lap over Team Mad in the 10 car. Third place, and rounding off the class podium, is Workiva Kinetic Racing number 85 machine, and then 4th place the 115 Full Momentum Racing car, 5 laps behind the leader. 5th place the Rutgers Gev Show P2 car, and then 6th place would be the 86 Kinetic Racing machine, with 7th place being Down in the Boots, and your retirees the 53 Majors HPD, and down to the GTE class.
In the GTE class, we have the Torque Freak Racing Rodillion car taking the win, with Road Bastards number 991 in second. Third place will go to the Avatar Auto Racing Ferrari 488, followed by the Majors Ferrari in fourth. Fifth will go to Elite Racing, followed by Can-Am Racing, and then rounding out the effective finishes are Underdog Racing and Roadhog Racing. And then the final spots in the GTE class are the Majors Ford and Friends of Kinetic Racing, number 183.
Well, there we go. That is that. And we'll bring in our first driver of the night, Joshua Wolf, the man who brought the number 48 car across the line. Josh, Grizzly Motorsports taking the win after 24 hours of racing. How does it feel?
It feels amazing. It was a great team effort. Definitely got us on our toes with the 83 there. They did a great job coming back. They got 1.6 to 9 minutes down. So definitely great job by them.
Well, bringing it home in the first place, did you ever consider that you may have crossed the line in first place at the start, having started second?
I knew it was going to be a tough race. We were right there. I wasn't able to really get the lap down in qualifying, but it was going to be a long and tough race, and it seemed like they had a few more issues than we did, and that's what kind of allowed us to end up getting the win, I believe.
So what do you think finally sealed the victory for you after all of that?
Definitely the strategy right there at the end. They were coming, and we decided we had kind of switched it up to run triple stints, and that gained us a little bit of time, and then they started saving fuel, and we knew we were going to have to make a stop. So Cordell, who built this setup, was giving me information and just told me to go for it the last 2 stints, and knowing that we would have to stop and use a little more fuel than what we had been for like the most of the last half of that race.
Well, either way, you came home in position number 1 at the very end, and a very measured drive to the end as well, with a bit of a splash and dash to the end. Who gets it done for you, Josh?
Well, I mentioned Cordell. He has built great setups here. Some of the fastest in Audi, no matter where we go. And just want to thank him for building this setup, and everybody else on the team for giving us just driving and getting us to this victory.
Well, there we go. Thank you very much for joining us, Joshua Wolf. That was the leader of the LMP1 class, the winner. Now, we'll bring home the GTE winners. David Barraclough and James Ewans now joining us in the commentary box. Guys, it was a fantastic victory for the number 81 Talk Freak Racing GTE, and a very dominant one as well. How does it feel from your perspective?
It's great. Like we knew we'd have a great chance in this one. This is our kind of racing. We are a team that does basically endurance racing, and so we put in a good amount of work, built a good set, and yeah, it came off. Really happy with this one.
So what eventually sealed the victory for you guys from your perspective? I know that when we came in to start our stint of commentary, you were already dominating the GTE class, but where did it all come together for you?
David? Oh, no,
yeah, if you like. Yeah, go for it, James.
Well, seeing as you were in the car, you probably you were just fast. So, but basically, we got quite lucky off the start with a penalty for the friends of Kinetic car, and David and George in the first 4 hours of the race just absolutely lit it up in terms of lap times. So yeah, when I got in the car for the fifth, sixth stint, whatever it was, we'd already had basically half a lap lead. So at that point, it was just driving the car. I mean, pretty much the entire race from that point on was just conservation. Like, we had a few hot laps in there, but once we'd kind of cleared the pack with the fast laps from David and George, it was pretty. I don't want to say it was simple, but it was just a case of managing the car at that point.
Well, an excellent result nonetheless. So looking at the rest of the season from here, guys, certainly you've come off of a great high in your class victory here. What does this say about the rest of your season this year?
So as far as the rest of the season goes, we'll definitely be looking to enter ourselves into a lot of the remaining events. We've got the race at Spa, obviously, in the GT3 cars coming up is definitely one that we kind of specialize in. So we're really looking at that one, and also the race in the Lotus 79s at Silverstone next month is one that personally I'm really looking forward to. I love that track. It's kind of a home Grand Prix, so to speak, for me. So well, for myself and James as Brits. So yeah, those two are the ones I'm really looking forward to. And yeah, obviously the V8s goes without saying for you guys. Yeah, but really looking forward to that one as well. How about you, James?
Yeah, I suppose Spa's going to be quite interesting. Yeah, we're pretty good at Spa normally, aren't we? So that would be quite good. But yeah, I think the highlight for me left is the Bathurst race. I think that's I'm not just saying that because one bit it's online either. That's legit. I think the Bathurst race is going to be pretty crazy. So yeah, really looking forward to that one.
Well, look out for Talk Freak Racing at those remaining rounds of the season. Who gets it done for you guys? Who do you want to thank?
Well, I guess I'd like to thank my teammates. Also shout out, which I know you're probably going to talk to them anyway, shout out to the HPD, the whole team, the whole TFR team through both cars this weekend have performed amazingly. It's been a real credit to the team. So thanks to all the guys that put in all the work, and also the setup work and the schedules and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But I guess mainly thanks to our sponsors. Obviously Link Engine Management have been with us for a little while now, and GB Enterprises have got their logos on the car. So really thankful for the support they gave us and continue to give us. So yeah, really, really cool weekend. And yeah, thanks to the broadcast as well. Obviously, thanks to you guys for making it happen.
Yeah, cheers, guys. And finally, thanks to James. I know you thank myself for yours, but thank you to you too as well, buddy.
Well, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary box, guys. That was David Barraclough and James Ewans from the Talk Freak Racing GTE car, which won their class. But now we bring in the winners in LMP2, the HPD, the Talk Freak Racing guys, Adam Shipstone and Ronnie Nunes. We'll go to Adam first. Adam, you won your class in the LMP2 class here at Le Mans. How does that feel for you guys? Also taking the victory in GTE as well. A great result for Talk Freak.
Yes, absolutely amazing result for us. A lot of hard work went into this race, so it was brilliant to come away with 2 victories.
Well, talking to Ronnie now, I guess you jumped in the car pretty early on, and I suppose this is the question that I've asked everyone so far. When did you guys feel that the race had finally been sealed for you guys?
Yeah, basically we had a really close fight with number 88. I think it was number 88 Workiva car. We're just trading fastest laps, and yeah, they sort of had an advantage with the tire strategy, but yeah, they ran into some misfortunes. They had like a 10-minute pit stop, which really helped us out, and we opened up a really big gap to P2 and just decided to play safe from there. But up until that point, I think that it was around the 12th hour. It was really intense up front.
Yeah, it certainly looked like one very hectic race out there. But coming home with the victory, just a fantastic result for you guys. So is there anyone that you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Go on, Ronnie.
Yeah. I would firstly I would like to thank my teammates, Adam, Martin, and Michael. I mean, this team really came together, and we really clicked, and yeah, everything worked on and off track. And of course, we would like to thank our sponsors for getting us here, supporting us. And yeah, all of our team, all of the Torque Freak Racing organization, thanks for having us.
Brilliant stuff, guys. So looking forward, I suppose, to the rest of the season. We'll see you guys then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
That's Ronnie Nuanez and Adam Shipstone from Talk Freak Racing, LMP2 winners, and the final driver interview for the night. We got Stefan Schlacher in the box with us for Turn 1 Heroes. Now, Stefan, I noticed that you guys were involved in quite the intense battle with V Apex and Grizzly at some points towards the end of the race. But to come home in 4th, it must be a result that you guys are very happy with.
Yeah, especially after our first stint where we had a screen freeze, and then pretty much we came from dead last a few laps back. Coming home in 4th is just incredible from every one of us.
So to come home in that position, we noticed that once again, the battle with V Apex Racing, which unfortunately came to an end, I suppose, when Russell Clayson had an incident with the GTE that unfortunately sent them into the wall for repairs. You guys were trading blows quite a bit towards the end.
Yeah, I was catching them quite a pace when Eric was in the car, but then Russell came in and I thought, oh God, I'm not going to be able to make it into 4th. So I pitted with Eric to kind of put the pressure on them. And yeah, as you said, and suddenly we pitted together, and suddenly Russell was nowhere to be seen, and suddenly was like right behind me a lap down. Unfortunate event for Russell, but I guess that's multi-class.
Yeah, certainly is. Well, Turn 1 Heroes coming home with a 4th place in Le Mans is certainly a fantastic result. So how much confidence does this bring you guys coming into the rest of the majors?
Honestly, quite a lot, because everyone worked hard to get the car to the pace that it was on. So I'm pretty sure that Turn 1 Heroes will be stronger and more experienced from this event.
Well, certainly going to look forward to seeing what you guys can do in the future. But for now, who would you like to thank before we let you go?
Most of all, Dominic Ferber, who shared his world record setup with us. Great shout out to you, man. You're awesome. Thank you very much. Obviously, teammates, Lonnie, Mike, and Riley. And of course, everyone at RacePod, GSRC, and you guys.
Well, thank you very much, Stefan, and thanks for joining us in the commentary box. That was Stefan Schlacker from Turn 1 Heroes, the 4th place LMP1 finishers. Now, we come to the very end, guys. Cam, Corey, it was a brilliant race, to be sure, in the majors. And, you know, once again, this series, it brings out the best in everyone, doesn't it, Corey?
Yeah, it exactly does. It's basically you know, you got a calendar full of races. There's a dirt race on there. There's ovals. There's road. There's everything in and between, basically. And it's only for one race, so you get used to one car, and then a month later we're going to do a race in a completely different car at a completely different track. So it is a skill of who is the best in everything.
Yeah, certainly is. And one step closer to the Mario Andretti Trophy for quite a few of these drivers. Well, Cam, the next race in the Majors series is going to be the British Grand Prix, I believe, the classic.
Yes, it is the classic Grand Prix British GP at Silverstone in the Lotus 79 on, I believe, the 16th of July for the Pacific, Atlantic, and European region, and the international as well, I think. Oh, yeah, sorry, for the international because of Scops. So there we go. So about a couple of weeks, and then we're back in racing again.
Yes, indeed. And we certainly hope to see you all there. It's certainly going to be an interesting one. Lotus 79 at Silverstone. We don't often get into historic racing on iRacing, but the Lotus 79 is one of those cars that certainly turns it on for us. We hope it turns it on for you as well. Big thanks to everyone for watching, and we hope to see you next time. This has been V8's Online's coverage of the final 3 hours of the Majors Le Mans 24. We hope you've enjoyed, and we will see you next time.